It is 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Selectboard and Finance Committee will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and the parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, or those who wish to do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recordings. So this meeting is being recorded by Berkshire Edge, Berkshire Eagle, the town of Great Barrington, CTSB, and others. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those recently anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So a couple of housekeeping items. One is, I had a couple people say to me it was a little hard to hear last night. It's been on Zoom, so make sure we speak loud. And if you're at the microphones should pick it up, but they said that was a little hard to hear, not impossible. So just realize that. So for those who don't understand the process, tonight and February 20th, next Tuesday, the meeting we set last night, we will vote on recommendations on the budget, which will go to the public hearing. Public here will hear at the public hearing, it's Finance Committee's public hearing, we will
It's still a panelist, Steve. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, Bill said he'd be late.
Oh,
So we will, at the public hearing, we will listen to public's concern. Then, after the public hearing, we will make our final vote, what to send to the town meeting for the warrant, or for the warrant. So there are two series of votes. Tonight's tentative to bring to the public hearing. And then after the public hearing, we hear public comments, we can change those after that. So tonight, we talked about doing last night we talked about doing three different categories. One being the capital, section 7, one being section 9, special articles, and then making a recommendation to the town manager and town staff about operations, and with that, free cash, which I didn't mention last night, to come back to us next Tuesday. So I thought we would start with special articles. We may have to go back and forth. The ambulance squad's financial person will be available between 7 and 7:30 via Zoom. But let's get some of the special articles done. And then we'll see if we have to go to capital and come back. We'll see what our timeline is. So what I would do tonight on special articles is we'll go through the 5 special articles that have been recommended. And then any others that anyone wants to bring up. Otherwise, we won't, if there's some that aren't recommended and no one wants to talk about, then we won't. You know, there's no sense in talking about them if it's accepted that they're not going to be put in. So
Steve, I just want to be clear, not talking about them means we accept them, or not talking about them means we're not recommending?
not talking about it means we're not recommending them. No, so in other words, let's go through 3. Last year, we did $100,000 in stabilization out of free cash. This year, the town manager and the staff is not recommending that. So we will accept that. What we'll do.
I see. It's not being recommended, even though it's listed.
Yes, anything that's not in the right-hand column is not being recommended. It's put on there for historical purposes, so you can see what we did last year.
And if nobody wants to talk about it, then it's just.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about things that no one's interested in talking about. I mean, we're interested, but there's nothing we can do about it. We have our job to do. What we normally do, we will vote on each line that we're funding. And then we'll take a final vote on the entire special article, so we're all clear that we know what's going on. So let's start about community impact
I have a
funding.
question here.
Yes, of course.
The emergency medical services.
Yes.
Do we have the person here?
So that's what I said.
Oh,
They
I'm
won't
sorry, I
be,
didn't
that's
hear.
okay. I
Yeah.
probably haven't been clear.
Yeah,
They're available between around 7 to
I see.
7:30. Their financial person will be on Zoom.
okay,
So we may have to go back to that, but they will be here.
okay, very good, thank you.
And Jim said he would be here tonight too. I don't
Okay.
see him yet, but he'll be here. So yes, we will definitely talk about that. Community impact
We're
funding,
doing this.
which seemed fairly simple until Ananda got on last night. So the request was made from Railroad Street Youth to add $1 million to that for their youth building, for their building. The realization is that comes out of free cash that can only be used for community impact funding. It doesn't affect the tax rate. We can't use that. So that money is in a silo in itself. So, I mean, there's two discussions tonight, the $500,000, which is what we had last year. And then the other is, do we want to make a recommendation of 1.5 million total? So that that money is available for the community impact committee to make a recommendation to the town manager, who then will say yes or no to it.
So, but, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Don.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yesterday, Ananda's mentioned that at the building that they're at, they would be building a second floor, but they rent that building. So who is the owner, who is the landlord of that building? And why aren't they doing the improvements?
That building is owned by a nonprofit. It's very, name of your. Yeah. Barrington Youth Building, it's a
Right.
nonprofit, it's a it stems originally from the Rotary. It's a separate group now, and they're a nonprofit, there's no money there to do that. I mean,
But Railroad Street Youth Project, they could be redoing this whole thing for all this, all this money. And they benefit, yes. But really the benefit is the owner of, the landlord of this. Is that true?
that's true.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, that's true. Is Ananda on the line?
Yes, her hand is raised.
Okay, that's the only problem with screen share, not that it's a problem, if I put it up, then it goes on the board area. Hi, Amanda, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah,
from
I
the
think, yeah. So it's an interesting building. The building is owned by the Great Barrington Youth Foundation, which exists only to own the building, and it is deed restricted by the town to be used for youth services and purposes. So if at any point it stops being used for that, it reverts back to the property of the town. The agreement that we have with the Great Barrington Youth Foundation is that we would enter into a very long-term lease. And we already are in a lease where we are responsible for the maintenance of the building. So I see this as a project of stewardship for a community space that Railroad Street can take on and can be able to continue to provide that space for young people in the heart of our community.
How will you deal with the fact that it needs to be ADA accessible?
This project would make that possible for, it would allow us, once you touch a building, you have to bring everything into compliance anyway. And so that would be part of what would have to happen. We would be able to increase accessibility on the first floor with a fully wheelchair accessible bathroom and, pending, we'd have to get farther into design and permitting to be able to say this for 100%, but the tentative plan and the goal is to also be able to have a elevator to the second floor.
Right.
And I have a question. So the rent you are paying today, once, let's say you receive the funds and you start the renovation and all that, is there understanding that your rent will be reduced, or are you gonna be somehow recoup the financial benefits of it on behalf of your organization?
The rent that we currently pay is extremely low. It is $300 a month, and it goes directly into a fund for building maintenance, and that's the
Okay.
only purpose of the Great
This is
Barrington.
not the rent there, yeah, okay. And my last question is, and that was something that I just kind of, I reading whatever what was published today, Berkshire Edge. We are 100% clear as to, and I think, Mark, you said it, that would not be any issues using those funds.
That's the advice we're receiving.
Be
from
received,
the
okay,
council.
from the, right, thank you.
So there's a handout, can you give a note, Amanda, as a panelist for, that way you can, I don't know if you can recognize, please, so you have to recognize Kathy.
Sure. Kathy, your mic is open.
So Kathy, go ahead, just state your name and address and your question. Kathy Couch? Yeah, go ahead. So we will take some public comment, but that's what the public hearing's for too. So we'll try to do both. I don't want to cut off public comment, but
I guess I do, while you're trying to get Kathy.
Yeah, go
I just want to, so I also, so right now, if we were to add this million, we'd be taking 1.5 million out of the free cash, of which about 4.5 million is in this community impact fund.
right,
Is
the
that
free cash
correct?
designated for
Right.
community impact. That's
So that's the amount right now. So it's not wiping it out
right.
entirely, but it'd be a significant.
It'd be a-
Yeah.
You're right. Other questions or comments?
Well, I do sit on that committee, and I guess I would like to see if, we can utilize that $1 million elsewhere. It's a great idea. We do give them a ton of money now. And I don't know, I'd like to explore other avenues. I'd maybe make it available. I'd like to see if there's something more needful for that $1 million. Another.
Thank you, Garfield. So, yeah, go ahead.
So the thought is that we would recommend it and then this group would ultimately make the decision. So
No, the decision would be made by Mark. The group would make a recommendation to him. It's a little, well, but that's the final decision on use of the community impact funding is the town managers. And he has appointed a committee to give him advice.
And the timing is such that this could all happen.
Yeah, we're at the perfect time because it's the town meeting. We're doing the budget right now.
Are there other groups that have come forward for funding, extra funding for this round?
We haven't opened this round up yet.
Can you speak up?
Yeah.
We
everybody.
haven't opened this round of funding up yet, and we won't until this coming summer.
So all we're really doing, the motion that I'd like to see if we're gonna approve this is to approve, if we're gonna approve it, is to approve the $1 million specifically for the Railroad Street Youth Building to be looked at by both the committee and then ultimately the town manager. And if it's not recommended, that goes back to free cash.
Okay.
So we're not increasing the amount we're gonna give this year from 500,000 to 1.5. As far as to any group, we're not opening it up. It's that specifically earmarking it for this group, if in fact it's recommended and the town manager approves. Not taking anyone's responsibilities away, we're not approving it.
So I guess one of the questions I had last night was that they currently have space right now. It's not that there isn't any space available. So they're renting space in Tom's Toys building. Is that correct? Ananda, so you do have a space currently. It would just be more convenient to have it in one building. Is that?
Well, it's also a shared space that they're in right now, like it's like
Yeah.
a shared office
Yeah.
space, so this would give the level of privacy.
Right, it's
Amanda can also-
dedicated,
sorry.
yeah. Okay.
That's correct. And part of our goal is to be locating everything we're doing in a space that's a youth space that youth have maximum access to. And so what we have located in the Tom's Toys building involves going 3 floors through spaces that are not youth spaces, that are office spaces.
Erica,
Yeah, just on this particular topic here, having been in the Railroad Street Youth Project building a few times, and just relatively recently. My mind with this impact fee is, it is designed to, help impact, and it should be pushed towards our children, the kids of town, and the ones that were vulnerable, with the influence of marijuana becoming legal. So, whether it's for the counseling on the second floor and everything, but the idea of using $1 million out of this thing that was generated from marijuana for impact fee to give the youth of Great Barrington, let's just call it an updated, state-of-the-art building at the end of the day, whether it's the first floor or the second floor. I don't see anything that this money could be more intended for, personally. So, that's my thoughts. I'm not on the committee, but, I know after growing up here in that Railroad Street Youth Project, starting basically right after I was technically out of school and truly considered a youth, I'm upset it wasn't around when I was here, because we had, all sorts of other stuff going on and nothing for the kids to go to. So I think improving that, because I see how it's improved, long as it's been allowing. I mean, it sounds to me like a great use of the money, since we're got this narrow spot of how we can even use the money. In an upgraded, solid building on the perfect location next to the skate park, the new park that's going in, right in the center of town. Seems pretty good to me.
Any other discussion? So what I'd like to hear is a motion by, and don't forget, we do two different motions. One by the finance committee and then one by the select board. Michelle, if you want to speak, unless
Well,
it's
I was
process.
just wondering when you were going to entertain public comment, you said you would, or?
If you have something to say,
Oh, it's okay.
yeah, it's just briefly,
Yeah.
yes. Because eventually, you'll have a
Right.
chance to speak at the public
Yeah,
hearing too.
exactly.
Yeah,
I
just
wasn't
go ahead.
sure.
Yeah, brief, just name and address, please.
Yeah, Michelle LeBear, 70 Division Street. I have two issues, with this. Realizing that these funds are restricted. I was back and forth a bit, but I had no idea that the Railroad Street Youth Project didn't own the building, that it's not their building. And I know that, I believe Ananda said that they would have a lease and everything, but leases are broken every day. With the value of real estate in Great Barrington, something could happen. And the owners of the building, whether they're a nonprofit or not, could get an offer they can't refuse and buy off the lease or whatever. Really uncomfortable with it. It's not their building. They could use the funds to find another good place or whatever. The second thing are the CF funds themselves, coming under challenge. Now, I know the town manager said the town council said everything is fine, but lawyers are challenged every day by other lawyers. So what would happen if Great Barrington is challenged on the use of their CF funds? So really, those two concerns are just really standing out there, and I think it would be your responsibility to make sure that is vetted before you recommend anything. Thanks, Steve, appreciate it.
Bob Redpath, 190 Castle Avenue. Just a question of clarification. So I also see there's an FY 26, $300,000 for the skate park. Is that in addition? I'm not sure if it's some,
Well, right now, we're on
buckets
that.
we're speaking of.
Right.
Right, but I know, just point of clarification, it's that's same area, so.
The skate park is in the area, but that's not on this budget.
That's not in this one.
No, it's
Okay,
not in
great.
this budget at
Thank you.
all. Buddy, go right ahead.
Walter Atwood, 370 Maple Avenue. I'm on the foundation board. The building was created for the use of the building, use of the community. The rent, the $300 a month goes with the insurance, maintenance, and they pick up the oil and the other expenses. The whole building, the whole use of the building, the whole idea of the building, when they got the piece of property from the town, was for the use of the building. And as a member of the foundation, I doubt very much it's ever going to be changed. And if it does change, it just comes back to the town.
Okay, go.
And
Yeah,
now-
Jonathan.
So I just, echoing what, Eric said, the biggest impacts I've seen from, cannabis is to the youth. And with having 3 children just graduating Monument in the past few years and seeing what they've seen, it really seems to make sense that if you were going to put community impact funding towards anything, I would think it's the youth. And especially if it's brick and mortar, something that, you know, ultimately, like Buddy said, it could come back to the town eventually. So it's deed restricted for the youth. It'll go back to the youth, whether it's Railroad Street Youth Project or something else. But I really think, you know, for the future of this town, this seems to make the most sense for me. So I echo what Eric said.
And what Nan said too, investing in a dedicated youth space where they can come get treatment and still feel safe, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of separate from the rest of town, I think this makes a lot of sense for these funds.
Yeah. Oh, I know you got your hand up, I'm sorry. Okay, do I have a motion? Bill,
A process question.
yes,
I'm gonna need to recuse on this. Do you have a view on whether or not I should state my reason for recusal, or is that totally up to me?
you can state your reasons. I don't believe it's required if you're.
Okay, all right, so I have to recuse on this because, Amanda sits on the Affordable Housing Trust committee, and CDCSB goes in front of that committee and asks for money. So on that basis, I'm gonna recuse. So then I'm gonna ask Ann to kind of
Yep.
take the lead.
So actually, I did actually have my hand up. Now you're reminding me, I would like to make a motion to support the community impact funding for $1.5 million, from the community impact portion of the free cash. I'm not sure how to word this.
That
be
1
honest.
million of it be set aside for Railroad Street Youth Building upon the recommendation of the Community Impact Funding Committee and the approval of the town manager.
Do I
If
have to
that's your
repeat that, or
intent.
can
No,
I
just
just
say-
accept that motion?
Yeah.
Yes, so I would like to make the combined motion that Steve and I just made.
Okay, Mark, you agree that works? Okay.
Second.
That has to be from
Oh.
the committee, right, yeah.
I'm not parking.
So it has been seconded. Any
Yeah.
further discussion? All right, roll call vote, Marina,
Aye.
Madonna, and I vote aye as well.
Do I have a motion?
I second the motion that's.
Okay, so we'll have the same motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're abstaining? Okay, so it's, show the record as 4 with 1 abstention, 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay. Next one that's recommended on here is the vocational tuition and transportation. Is there anyone who wants to discuss this, or do we just want a motion? I think we discussed it last night, and I'm not sure. There's a lot of choices here.
It's every year the same thing, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend $80,000 for the Berkshire Hills Regional School District vocational tuition and transportation special article.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Marina,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
and then, oh, no, I'm
coming back.
sorry.
There's a coup that happened. I get the headlines out here.
And my esteemed chair, how do you vote? I approve as well.
Do I have a motion?
Same motion as the finance committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, we're going to skip over, as I said, emergency medical services till everyone gets here. So, okay, the legal fees associated with the host community agreement renewals. This will be a little tricky, but not the end of the world. Lee had recommended last night that this just goes into the 500,000, now 1.5. So we can do one or two, well, we can do 3 things here. We can accept this as it is, town manager recommendation. We can add it to the community impact funding, which we voted on, or we can take it out and say, you got 500,000, so now you have 485,000.
Yeah.
So any of those 3 things, whatever, anyone's choice. I don't know that anyone's gonna be passionate about it.
Yeah, I think it's cleaner to say 45.
It's cleaner to do what?
Take, say 4085, take the 15,000
Yeah.
out of the community impact funding, the 1.5.
Do we have to re-vote on the committee impact
No.
funding? then?
No, this way you definitely won't have to, because all you're doing is taking that 15 out.
Yeah,
We're just gonna eliminate
Yeah.
8.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds, I.
Make a motion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, approve the article for legal fees associated with host community agreement renewals. For these legal fees, provided that it will be included in the 500,000 allocation above.
So let's just clarify, that's not what I.
Yeah,
heard
can
this
can we
say.
make a motion to remove it from the list of special articles with the assumption that it will be part of the 500,000?
I'm not saying one way or another, but that's not.
That's what we want.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm against that.
I'm trying to agree with. what-
Okay, so the agreement is to strike our special article 8, and the intention is to include it, it's included as part of the 500,000.
Perfect. Second,
I'll second that motion.
Donna,
Aye.
Elena,
Aye.
Aye.
and it's unanimous, yeah.
I make a motion, seconds the motion of the finance committee.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Did you scroll
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Next one is the courthouse upgrades. Mark, do you wanna picture this a little bit?
Sure. So the last night we had a little bit of discussion about the lease renewal. And I did prepare, I wasn't prepared last night. I didn't think we'd be talking about it, but I did review the lease this morning. Made some notes. Joe's also here to talk about the capital improvements necessary, but before we talk about this article, I just wanted to provide a few facts. Our last lease term was a 10-year lease. It was signed in 2013, 2014 by my predecessor. The tenant is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Trial Court. The building, the former Dewey School, consists of 9,563 square feet of office space. The monthly rent during that 10-year term was $9,294, or $111,528 per year. So that equals $11.66 a square foot. And again, this is the last 10-year term. We have not negotiated a new 10-year term. The town was responsible for building improvements and system maintenance under that agreement. That means the plumbing and water systems, the sewer, gas, electricity, HVAC, lighting, all of that needed to be maintained in good repair. The building needs to be free from pests. We handle the snow removal and the building envelope, the roof, windows, locks, fire protection, things like that are our responsibility. Under the last term, we agreed to replace carpeting, and I won't get into details, but it was pretty much carpeting throughout. Although the lease is very specific, which areas were to be replaced. Tile work, replacing the HVAC system, replacing plumbing fixtures, holding cell improvements. There are 2 or 3 cells in the basement level there. We agreed to paint the interior and exterior of the building at that time and replace all the windows in the building, with the exception of, I believe, the basement windows. So that's all the information I have on the last 10-year lease. We're again still negotiating the next 10-year term. But the improvements that this $200,000 and the what was the capital number? 241.
Yeah.
Collectively, that represents the improvements that the state is asking us to fund this year, which we will be compensated for over the next 10-year term.
Mark, can I just clarify something? So I thought that the state is only really requiring this 200,000, the 241,000 is
Yeah.
what we're thinking is required.
Right.
Correct?
Or there may be some crossover there. I'm not joking. It's running better than I can.
So what we did is,
The 241 is or $76,000 of immediate repairs that were identified in the asset management report.
76.
76,000. The difference between the 241 and the 76 is capital improvements that are part of the request,
Part of the what?
part of the request
Yeah.
of the lease.
I'm still struggling then why we have two
Double
different lines
counting,
here. It's
Yeah.
just so confusing.
Some of it is general maintenance, painting, things we wouldn't necessarily want to borrow for. So that's what you're seeing in this,
Oh, so this is a different kind of,
in
The
the special.
241 is borrowed, so it's like sidewalks that are gonna last 25 years.
That's what I thought you meant. It was
Right,
The
right.
the 241, a lot of it is the outside of the building. Is that correct? That's what I remembered from last night, but maybe I'm.
Yes,
You know, the 241 includes the sidewalk, entryway doors, handrails, to the main level, from the main level to the basement. Some work on the HVAC system, there's a couple of units that need some work. And it's for the lobby. So they're all capital, they're all
capital
They're all-
expenditures.
expenses you don't
Long-term,
mind
yeah,
borrowing.
yeah,
Right,
I understand. Except for the 76, which is painted.
So what is covered under the 200?
What are they asking for? Right.
$365,000.
Right, but what are they asking for? Not how
Yeah,
much.
but what is?
Specifically, what do they want? They say, hey, we're renting this, could you improve X, Y, and Z? What is it, what exactly is that?
I'm not sure I tallied that number.
Well, not the numbers so
Well,
much,
just-
what are the items that they
What are
want?
the items they want?
The ones you just read were part of the 241.
Okay, it was the front sidewalk going up to the building.
They want a new sidewalk?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so what they want?
They want a new
Well,
walkway.
plus
They want a
it's
walkway.
Safety issue. No, there's an existing one there, but we need to upgrade it. It's a little blacktop sidewalk that's small,
Which is ours.
which is ours.
That's part of the 241,
I'm
right?
sorry?
That's part of the 241, the capital.
Correct.
Okay, but I think we're asking what's the 200?
What are they
It's
doing?
what you said.
Special article.
Yeah, what's in the
So
200,
the
yeah,
200,
yeah.
there's, exterior painting. Some pavement patching along the sidewalk in the rear of the building. There's crack sealing in the parking lot, which doesn't have a long lifespan, but 4 or 5 years. For the term of the lease, it would probably be done twice. Exhaust fans inoperable, HVAC system contract. One of the things they requested is the annual contract for the HVAC system, where we would hire a vendor to come in and change the filters. Rebalance the HVAC system. There's some concern on the part that some areas are getting more or less heat and cooling. Front step repairs. So there's a few electrical items. There's some. Well, that's it for that.
Interior painting?
Yeah, so Joe, if I may ask you, so the 76,000 that you said that was what you identified, that would be not what they asked for, but that's what we need to do for the building.
The 76 are the immediate items that were identified, like when Ty and Bond came and did like a code review of the building.
Right, so that we would have to do it regardless, whatever.
For sure.
That has to happen. And in addition, there are other requirements that came from the tenants.
Right.
The things that they want to do, that you split between the capital and the special article.
Based on the
Yeah,
longevity.
depending on the type of expenditure, okay.
And then the request from the court system was, their list was that, they said, hey, we would like to paint the interior and exterior building within the first 2 years of ownership. This is the next year will be.
Right, okay.
So was their wish list what Mark was saying?
No, that was, the list I read was the last. 10
No,
years.
no,
I just gave you what they-
So their last list, we still didn't do the HVAC? Cause I
No, we
see,
did.
We did.
but they still want more HVAC?
No, that's made up of, some units that are in the
Yeah.
ceiling that don't have a lifespan of 30 or 40
Yeah,
years.
so just
They have
like,
like a 12-year lifespan. So there's an issue.
Replacement.
So, yeah, so you're, just to clarify again. I think what you're saying is that we need to commit, you're asking us to commit upfront to a pile of work on the building. Some of which is required by the tenant, some of which is we need to do, you're making that decision, but that total adds up to 460.
for FY 25.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to confirm that.
And then he's supposed to, I think it's 441.
Oh,
Yeah.
440, yeah.
Okay, so 440,
And we know that the
Yeah.
last term of the 10-year lease, we took in over $1 million, so just
Okay,
keep that
yeah,
in mind. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we took in over $1
Over $1
million.
million over 10 years,
And we would expect to take in more than that with the new. lease.
significantly more.
Yeah.
okay, so if I may, just on this point, I connected with Joe very briefly as a follow-up to where I left off. And we had a good conversation, very brief. We have sort of a missing piece that Joe, I guess, needed to sort of follow up on, maybe confer with Mark. And then I was going to use that to sort of update my work and then come back. So I guess I'm really saying what I volunteered for at the last meeting is in process, and I need more time, Joe, to sort of complete that.
I'm convinced now to do this because it's clear that we're going to make money on that. We're not going to lose money, and it's a positive for the town. So I don't want you to waste your time, if, you know, for my sake.
No, I hear you, I hear you.
The piece of the puzzle, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, the
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle that Phil was wondering is, if we decided to do nothing and let the tenant leave and mothball the building, what would it cost me?
My reputation,
So I think-
which isn't great
But
anyway.
if you parallel what happened in Housatonic School and things like that, you know, it was.
You're making my point.
Right,
No,
so,
I don't, it's just that when I'm taking these notes, out of the 241, you have on there sidewalks, handrails, capital improvements, the HVAC, and then in their that's in the 241. And then in their 200,000, they want the same thing, so.
no, they're not.
Well, you said they wanted more HVAC issues, exhaust fans, parking,
Well, exhaust fans were bathroom exhaust fans.
okay, and then parking, patching, the parking
Right, that's-
stuff, pavement patching, painting. You want the same thing? No, okay, all right,
So,
but
I
I'm still
think,
confused.
I think I understand now is that there's the 200,000 that's being asked for things that may not have a lifespan that's worth borrowing, that rises them to level borrowing. Then there's, of the 241, there's about another 180 that they're asking for that are long things that are long more capital improvements, and then we've got our own 76,000 of capital improvements.
Step back and take a 10-year look at that, at the 10-year step that we should have. Between what we've identified in the asset management includes 3 categories: immediate needs, 1 to 5 years, and 6 to 10. And then we have what the court system is looking for. If you add all that up, it's $1.2 million.
Right, you're gonna be coming back again,
Right, so that's over 10 years.
right,
We took in under the old lease, 1.1 million.
right.
Granted, the cost that I just said, the 1.2, is gonna have an escalation factor over the time. But if we get if we turn around and get the increase that we're looking for, we could take as much as $2 million.
Right. Yeah, that's.
And I'm pretty confident in saying, if we don't get the increase we're looking for, we're gonna say we're not doing all this work either.
The lease will come back to the select board for review in a public session. anyway, So there's another chance for public input and board input at that time.
So none of this work is court specific, so if, God forbid, we have a population decline and they said there's no more need for a court, that they leave and we're stuck with, you know, very specifically fitted items that only a court could use, like this is all just building maintenance, so we can
Correct.
repurpose it for anything, so it's really investing in brick and mortars and something that's in the heart of the town, so
Mhm.
it sounds like, you know.
The court
But I think
specific stuff, they take care of it.
But if it was like, you know, something that was very court specific, that they leave and we're stuck with,
No,
you know, things that
But
we
if it
have
was, so
to.
the lease gonna be for
repurpose.
10 years, so for
Yeah.
10 years, you're gonna.
We have 10
you know,
years, they can definitely, but I'm saying afterwards,
Yeah.
we're not making
if we
sales
fast,
or anything.
if we fast forward 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, in 10 years, we live up to our piece of what we're thinking we're gonna do here, and they pay their bill.
Yeah.
We're gonna have made $1 million in 10 years.
Yeah,
And
exactly,
we're gonna have a building that's kept up.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna make any conclusions on this because I got sort of the midway point with Joe and we agreed to hit pause on that. But again, it is a very important point that when we contemplate this investment, you know, if we were to elect to do nothing, it's not like, it seems like it's not likely we have an asset on our hands, we have a liability. So I didn't appreciate that as much as I should have. I asked Joe to sort of quantify that a bit.
Yep.
But that's the headline, you know, it goes down the path of like the Wisconsin school.
Mhm.
And, with all the ups and downs of that. So if you guys want me to complete the discussion with Joe and quantify it, we can do that, or we could elect to not do that.
Let's see what the motions are after we get done talking.
I just want to say that I think Melina mentioned last night that if we're going to go, if we do this and we start going into a 10-year lease, are we going to be adjusting it so that it's not flat for 10 years, but their rent will go up? Who negotiates
planning
that?
to do any of that, or what is?
We're still waiting for a proposal from the state, so the last 10-year term was
What's
a
flat?
flat
Right, yeah.
rate for the 10 years. We could certainly discuss that with the state. We haven't seen the proposal yet, so I
Okay, so
don't know what that
are
will look
are
like.
you guys negotiating, or you have a broker doing it for you, or
No, we'll negotiate with them and our attorneys.
you will do
Do
it?
you need an agreement or do you, a recommendation from the, finance committee to? I'm just saying, if you're chatting with them, you know, and I think it's very prudent.
Although, and I'm not a financial expert, but if you start the first year fairly high and don't have escalation, as opposed to starting the first year lower and have escalation, I don't know that it matters.
Well, it really depends what are the terms.
Exactly my
Right,
point.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's-
Yeah,
Yeah, if you have very favorable terms, you're
Yeah.
fine, yeah, totally, yeah.
Would you be okay if I made a motion?
Sure.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve item 11 on the special articles, the courthouse upgrades of 200,000, from free cash.
Second,
Any discussion?
We have a vote. Is this a dramatic pause? or-
No, I am thinking, I'm sorry, they're not intentionally dramatic, yeah. Um, do we have any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote,
Aye.
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 I'm gonna abstain.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make the same motion of the finance committee.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, unanimous. Okay, so now we're waiting on the emergency medical services. Is there anything else on here that was not recommended that we're going to talk about? And the first one, let's talk about the library, because we know they're here. I saw them. And they asked to have some more time tonight, which is fine. And then we won't go through any of these. I'll just ask if anybody has anything to say about the rest of them. No one does on the boards or the audience, and we'll move ahead. So library, if you want to. Patrick, Ruby?
So I think we said a lot yesterday. What we're asking for is for the chance from both boards to give us a chance to go before the town to let them decide what they want to do with the Ramsdale Library. This is a proposal that is sustainable for 30 years or more. And we're going to have support from the state to do this with their criteria of how to do it correctly. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
So Patrick, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, is there any questions?
So
I'm asking, are you gonna make a statement?
Not a statement, we're just here to help.
Okay,
okay, I do have
Go
a
right.
question. So I just want to make sure that I understand really what you are talking about here. So you guys are asking for $150,000 to be eligible for a grant that will come from the state, right? And the grant will cover a portion of whatever the capital program is for the library, do I understand correctly? Does the grant require that the town commits any funds, or can you just raise those funds through fundraising or other means, or I think the key here is to understand, is there any liability for the town? And if so, how that would be addressed, or, yeah,
So the largest vote for the construction phase of this wouldn't go into effect until 2027.
okay,
At that point, there would have to be a town vote to commit to the funds for the project.
for the project, okay.
Yeah. And the state would pick up the first 60% for the first 5 million. Anything after that is 45 million will also pick up. And then at that point, any fundraising, anything that supplements grants, anything else comes off the bottom line for the town.
So really, if I understand correctly, what you guys said is, we are really not gonna be making that decision until 2027. And really, in the meantime, you can get the thing running and see if you are able to raise some of the additional funds through your fundraising efforts, as the other libraries have done.
Yes, yes.
Correct?
So what would be, there's a planning and design phase. That's this phase now.
Right,
If we're accepted, then the state would.
just they would cover that.
Well, it would be 150 that would be down on that. And then they would give up to another 100,000, depending on what the cost of that is.
Okay.
And then that goes throughout the next year.
Mhm.
Uh,
And do you have an idea how much money you would need for that phase right now? Do you
For
have-
that phase, yeah, the MDLC that they determined it shouldn't be more than 250,000. That's their,
And the other question I have is, if we say no, and we say, we don't really feel this is the right thing to do, what's gonna happen to Ramsdale? What is the alternative?
we don't know, we'll get up that next morning and try to raise more money. I mean, what I think from the time, line that I showed last night, where things have failed is, attempts have been made and then everything stops. Every
Right,
time.
right,
And then the price goes up, but it stops, and then it starts again and stops. So this has been going on since 2009. So the mistake this time would be to stop. So if we don't get the approval, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough to raise money from foundations, because the first thing you're gonna say is, well, where's the town in this? What did the town put into this? And then, foundations are looking for evidence of this support.
right. But is there any plan? I mean, maybe Joe, what is the plan for Ramsdale? If we don't proceed with this,
Well, there's
Right.
come up to the microphone, so people at home can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The DPW has no plan. What we do is maintain the building,
right,
okay? And, we just made a $600,000 improvement to make the building handicap accessible.
right,
We put $100,000 into the new heating plant.
right.
So the asset management has identified things.
Because
for
I
Ramsdale.
didn't, yeah, and
Yep.
do you know what kind of number we're talking
I can
about?
go grab it for you.
Yeah,
Sure, if you're-
Well, I guess,
I mean, I'm just trying to kind of understand which
No,
is,
that's fine.
which would make more sense for the town.
I think if I could jump in, one of the questions for Public Works is, how do we keep it a functional building, usable in a plain, general sense as it is now? What the library is exploring is how to transform it into a 21st century building and what that will take. So there's a difference there.
No, I understand that, I understand that,
And the
I
state
just want,
building grant would do that, but that's not Public Works objective.
no, I understand that, I just want to see what it would cost us anyhow, if we don't pursue the strategy, and then see, what is the delta here, yeah. So,
The report that Joe had done, that amount was 1.885 million.
Joe's behind you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let me just throw this back into terms that the whole thing was written about. Or the asset management was immediate needs, $140,000, which in our capital budget, we're
It's-
requesting.
Right, it was there, right, I saw that, yeah.
1 to 5 years, 1.09 million. And 5 to 6 years, 993,000, or a total 1.855.
Okay,
So as far as plans too, we're looking to apply for an energy efficiency grant for Ramsdale because the heating plant is just one zone for that whole building. So we're looking to improve that.
Mhm.
So, I'm not making the decision, is it not a library anymore?
Right, right,
That's the town's decision.
right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think.
Can I ask you to clarify again? If we were to approve this for the 150,000, when would you expect that money to be spent?
After October, it's coming here.
Do you have would you be spending it? Do you need any further approvals or thumbs up from the state to spend that money?
Well, yes, the state has to approve our project.
Okay, so
If you don't approve it, then.
so, but that application is before them now, or you would be filing it promptly?
It gets filed May 31st if we get the 150,000.
Okay, so it's a condition to the filing, and an optimistic scenario is they give you the thumbs up over the summer or the fall, and then you start spending that money on design plans.
Yes, that's the next phase, yes.
So if the state doesn't approve it, it just goes back to free cash.
Yeah, it stays in the town.
And I have to ask another question, but I'm sorry, is this is our town's second library? Okay. Now, do you have a view on the relative merits of your application to the state as the town's second library compared to other towns that are perhaps renovating, their only library?
They don't, they're not biased. They want all libraries brought up to date.
But they have to be prioritizing at some point, right?
It depends on, they're basing this grant on the community's needs in general. So in other words, we have an interesting situation. We have two libraries. They're about 5 miles apart, it's quite a ways. But the thing is, Ramsdale is going to be a completely different animal. That's what everybody that's looked at it has told us what we need to do. It's a community space. It always kind of was. It'll be more than that now. It'll be community space. It'll
I'm
have.
sorry, when you're using the term everybody, what can you be a little more
It'll be a
specific?
destination for,
No, I'm saying, you implied that you're sort of getting feedback from everybody in town that they're supporting this project.
I didn't say that.
Okay, so please clarify what you said then.
I was referring to consultants and everybody that we've spoken with, as they see how Ramsdale fits best. It shouldn't be duplicating Mason at all.
Go ahead, Liz.
So when you talk about community space and the likelihood that we would get approved, what is considered a library versus a community space? Would they have to say, okay, well, if we're looking to make it more of a community space and offer programs, and I'm not really sure, because I haven't really seen the programming for this, but would we be locked into having technically a library and then they would program it for us? Like, what would they be dictating what?
That's a
would go
very
inside?
good question. I think a lot of people have a misconception of quote unquote the traditional library. You have to realize that nowadays, a lot of social media, a lot of online usage of reading material is that the library understands this and the state understands this. And the trend moving forward is that they want a community space. That is actually number one. They also have collections, but they also have maker spaces. They have individual spaces so that you can hold 1 or 2 people tutoring smaller spaces. But it's become a community center for a particular area. So they look at the needs of that particular area, whether it is part of the town or the whole town, and they look at how that library plays in the lives of the people around it. And then they determine what is needed in that space. So it's a misconception to say that libraries, we can go to Mason to get books and get our collections. Why do we need to go to another place? That's not the point.
And I'm not saying, I'm just saying, sometimes when you take state funding or federal funding, there are strings attached. So with, example, Main Street, we were having to put these huge, massive light poles because we took state funds and now we're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. So I'm curious on, you know, what are we on the hook for? And there must be some description, what is a library, what they would expect for us to follow through. And so I would be curious.
This is from Mark May Cook up in Monterey, who actually has been a reviewer of grant applications in the past. And he sent this to us in December. We asked him to. He said, I don't think the MBLC is going to approve any grant that doesn't include flexibility that brings libraries out of the last century when they were simply stacks and reading rooms. This is what Monterey got in 1931. 90 years later, what is drawing people to the library is a community space. You don't need to feel obligated to buy coffee or a meal or pay for entertainment. The public library of our time has transformed the concept of free lending library into no obligation, free community gathering space. There's been a real rapid evolution in libraries. That's why they're all expanding their square footage. They don't need it for books. So it completely transformed the thinking, and that's from the MBLC.
Do we have a woman that, the new librarian, is she on this? Because somebody came up to me about the library issue that they were looking at the Ramsdale and was actually criticizing the Mason that the community space, which is underneath, that it's filled with boxes and nobody's using it. There's 2 rooms that you can rent basically free for an hour, but basically there's like no room. There's no accessibility, there's no program, I mean, they probably have some. So the children's room is a children's room, can somebody
The
speak to
community,
this?
yeah, the community, yeah.
Yeah, I can speak. There's no ventilation in there. So once COVID happened, that room is turned into a storage facility. But we got a report from Dawn, our new director, just this week, and it's getting cleaned out as we speak.
But I guess what I'm saying is it's enhancing your concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there's room for other community spaces. And this would be perhaps a smaller adjunct library or lending library or whatever. I mean, cities do it all the time.
Yeah.
You have a little thing in Greenwich Village and you have a little thing in Chelsea
I mean,
and.
you see it even in the area here. I have visited many libraries in the region, and I have to say, that's pretty much what everyone is doing.
Yeah.
So I don't really think you guys, I mean, I really appreciate that you are putting effort into something like that.
Yeah.
I guess my question is a bit of a shift. I mean, when you came in front of us last night, you talked a lot about fundraising, and I'm just wondering, what is the fundraising plan? Are there some goals? Are there some goals that, you know, you could give to us for when you come back, assuming this moves forward? What can we
I
expect?
mean, this is kind of off the record because we're just starting, and looking at the libraries that have been capable.
I just want to let you know that.
Everyone don't listen.
Okay. How's that? Off the-
Greenfield,
Right, you mentioned Greenfield, right?
they
Yeah.
raised $2 million.
Right.
They started it out of nowhere. We're doing essentially the same thing.
Did-
It's not attached to the town's money. It's
Right,
not attached to the town.
the Greenfield, you mean?
Well, at most of them. The
Okay.
501c3, we've gone to Liana Toscanini. She'll be our fiscal sponsor till we get complete approval for the 501c3.
So Greenfield that raised all this money, and I think Monterey did too, or maybe I'm not, no.
Almost everybody has done.
So does the town's investment help in that? So
It's-
did Greenfield get an initial investment?
Yes, it's critical. I mean, because again, foundations,
Okay.
you have to check the boxes and the town that's giving nothing.
Okay.
I think the foundation-
Right.
So one of my questions would be, and I'm only familiar with the school building. In the school building world, which is the state,
Mhm.
that if we raised $1 million, they would reduce their
This
sales
is
by $1 million.
No.
Okay, 'cause
So we're on the town, we're getting hooked for 20%. No, sorry, 40% of the money. And so whatever comes in, the state doesn't take that. State's into it for 60%.
it's a different group. I just want to know if they. Yeah, Eric and then.
So Pat, maybe you can speak to, just as you said, what is it, in 27, when it would have to go back, in front of the town to fill whatever gap is missing. With that being said, you know, thinking of the taxpayer and this capital project we're looking at today, the ones that we're expecting to see in the future. We're eventually here tonight getting to the point where we're gonna have to start making hard decisions of what we're presenting. How do you see this when in the future, we're gonna be talking about a new school build? Whatever goes on with Housatonic Waterworks, how do you see us presenting this to the towns? With to get that final vote that you may need, if hopefully if we get that far.
2027.
2027, knowing all these hard decisions we have now. I guess this is more leaning on like definitely a lot of fundraising is gonna be needed, but also it's how do we see that unfolding in your eyes there?
I think it's too far away to tell where this world is moving. But I think the thing is, if the fundraising is robust, that's gonna make a huge difference, because that's an investment. And we'll see what happens. I mean, bear in mind, Stockbridge didn't get an MBLC, they didn't go for an MBLC grant.
Right.
So right up the road, they raised all that money. It was a great fundraiser, and Amherst again was largely responsible for it. There's also a lot, there's a mass cultural fund, there's several different silos of money, federal money for Ellen State, for example, every year, 250,000, there's a grant. If we get it, one of these years, that would go a long way to paying for an elevator. So there's money, those monies that are aside that libraries seem to traditionally all get. There's some HUD money, there's a whole bunch of categories that throws money our way.
And then just to follow up if I can, like, so in the next round, I know Ruby last night was talking about the CPA funds and stuff, and as we see, that's getting awful aggressive to apply for those and stuff like that. Plans for filling those gaps as well, like this goes to town vote applies for the, like, gives you the green light. They've been giving you that so far. Do we have measures in case next year there's 30 applications, 40 applications in front of the CPA to make the next step to fill whatever's there?
It's just more reason to fundraise, to get grants.
Lee and then we're done.
So, so as someone that works in fundraising, it's incredibly hard to fundraise. And I would love, in a perfect world, if you were to come to us and say, we've been doing this campaign and we've already raised $300,000 and we have 20 other major donors lined up saying rah, 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 but it's really hard for me to feel enthusiastic and confident that you have this ability. Number one, fundraise privately, which is incredibly hard because there's a lot of people really, really struggling right now just to pay their bills. And number two, being on the Community Preservation Committee, we had to make a lot of hard decisions, and each year the money keeps going down from the state. As more towns join, the CPA, we get less money. So the competition is getting worse. So I really feel, in my heart that I wish you could kind of show us, hey, we've already raised $300,000. We have the Friends of the Library. They have this, real aggressive campaign. Look what we've done. Look what we can do. We know that the, CPC will come next year and give us X amount, but for me, it feels that it's aspirational, and I wish that there was something I could hang my hat on, because I am 100% for this project, but it's hard for me to be confident.
Hang your head on this. The major fundraiser that does this stuff at the Amherst, he pays over $100 million for libraries. Couldn't have been that hard. He was the one that did Stockbridge. He's done Triplex. So I've been talking to this guy for 5 years. But he's the man. Everybody goes to Rojan. He built Rojan. So you look all over, go to his website.
I can see.
Let Eric speak and then Madonna and then Garfield, just,
Who's speaking?
I mean, not Erica, Ben, go ahead.
Sorry, do you just,
Because it's
from personal experience of working this, and just to kind of echo what Lee's saying, and we've worked with the man you're talking about. It's still hard, even when you have the expert in hand, it just, when you work with experts, you can get the best advice, the reality might be completely different, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
He did it right up the road in Stockbridge, and I think libraries are a different animal. There's people that are passionate about library. I'm not so sure, maybe less for movie theaters, but there's passion. You look at every library, they all have these endowments, so people are giving.
I just wanted to ask them, beside you two being champions and coming here, how strong is your committee? How big is your committee? How strong is it? Is it diverse, or is it just you two going out with a banner going, we need some money?
Well, we're the only two who are brave enough to come in here. The community's emerging, there's more people as we start asking.
So how many would be it's small?
Well, our board of library trustees is 6 members. So we have gone through this over this past 6 to 9 months, and they have supported and voted for all.
But that's the library for Mason and Ramsdale, correct? Well, but yours is being so very specific. In addition to that, can you get a handful of people like Nikki Wilson, who just kind of just says, you know, we're not losing the triplex? I mean, I know it's a totally different thing, and I think you're right, that it's a different, kettle of
They're
fish.
kind of like the Nikki Haley of the Ramsdale.
We're just starting this.
Nikki
out.
Nikki Wilson.
I'm sorry, Nikki Haley, sorry, Nikki Wilson, sorry. My mistake, big mistake, sorry.
Yeah, go
I'm not sure if I'm being too simplistic about this, but I'm kind of concerned of why there's such a resistance against this. It's free cash. We're using free cash for other things. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big super fan of the bus, but it does bring money to the town. But I wanted to know, actually, are we able to recoup that 50,000?
So we're not talking about the.
Right, I understand. I'm just setting, I'm making
Okay.
an analogy.
Yeah,
But I think it's kind of an iconic building in Housatonic, which people there probably don't have wheels and can get into Great Barrington even with the bus. I think it's certainly needed. It's an educational tool. I don't see why we're having such a hard time with an educational tool for this town, and I think the money would be well spent.
so Garfield, let me speak next, just play devil's advocate. So we're at a budget year that is, the debt service that we have right now is very, very high. So if this is, to me, a gateway, this 150 is a gateway to open up. And I have no faith, not in Patrick, not in Ruby, but that we're gonna be able to raise $2 million for Ramsdale Library. I'm not in favor of closing Ramsdale, that's not what we're talking about. But we're opening a gateway that the town will be responsible eventually between $2 and $3 million. Because we're responsible for part of that. It's not all free cash. We will have debt. And then there are, as Eric said, there are other debt projects coming up. There are a lot of them. And I'm just not so sure that right now is the right time to do this. This is really starting in motion a debt, leading to a debt of $2 or $3 million. That is, we have roads, we have bridges, we have the school, we have a lot of things that are coming up. And we might want to do the library piecemeal to bring it up. Do we need a 6 million in it, or do we need 2 million in it? And 2 million over 10 years, whatever. It's a tough decision, but that's my take on it.
I think, Steve, you're only on the hook now for 150,000,
Right,
maybe.
right.
And in 2 years from now, if we haven't raised any money, then
It's going away.
It
Yeah.
should bomb down.
No, but you said you were gonna spend that money.
No.
We can't hook for
If he gets
150,000.
this.
It only
gets
gets
the
spent
grant.
150. That's
Yeah.
all.
Right, okay, so we're not getting that back, all right.
Well, if the state says no,
Then
then
you
we
get
get
it
it back.
back,
You
yeah.
could.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we approve this, the 150, it just sits in account as you go through the application process, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it can't just say, we couldn't put it towards the library. It just has to sit there.
You haven't spent the 50,000 right from the CPA yet.
It's coming up.
May I just say I have not
We're about to
changed.
sign it.
No, I didn't ask you to.
I understand, but I'm
Yeah.
letting you know.
So I just want to, I would like to make one point, life is not perfect. So, it would be perfect if they had the fundraising going on, but they don't, they are just starting. And because there is a deadline for the grant, so we are basically making a decision whether we're gonna go for a grant, which I understand was available 8 years ago.
Yes.
Didn't happen, will be this
Yes.
time, may not happen, then maybe it will never happen, right? So the question is, are we willing to give them $150,000 to try go for the grant, knowing that if they can raise the money, it's gonna go for the vote, no one's gonna vote for it, because no one's gonna be approving an expenditure of $2 million a few years down the road with everything else going on. I think that's, no one in this town would do that. So I myself feel there is, the risk is controlled, it's managed.
I have to say that to your benefit, that you fully understand where we're coming from. And that is, the approval of this does not mean it's all or none. You either have to sink money in or you don't.
Yes.
So all it does is it opens the gateway for us to apply. And once we apply, if we do get some money back, we have a design and we have a plan. And then with that plan, I come before the town. The town has to approve of the construction of this. So nothing gets done until the town approves the design and the construction. This is what the town wants. And once that's approved, then we also have 2-3 years to fundraise during this whole time. So we will be able to come back to the town. If you approve, we have this much money set aside. Are you going to approve with this in condition? So we will have additional things for the town to look at. And you guys have the final say on whether this is something that's gonna go before the town for a vote, or it's not.
With little risk, we're giving you hope. That's basically it,
It's
right?
not just hope, it's really the demand of the future. It is what we have to pay for the next generation.
I agree.
Okay, so go ahead.
Can I have one clarification about what, so you got 50,000 from the CPA, and now you're asking for another 150,000. Is that gonna be it for this design process, or is there gonna be another ask next year?
No,
That's it.
That's it.
That's it until 2017, where we will, 2027.
So let me just understand this, because I want to make sure I get it right. I assume then that the library board, not the trustees, but the library state pays for your architectural work or part of it? Like that's part of that?
That's what's next, the design.
Right, and so we pay 40%, they pay 60 of the design.
No, they pay, well, how does that work? We're paying 150.
So what happens is that if the 150 gets us in the door.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, you guys are worth looking at, let's invest some money. The money they will give us is up to $100,000. In addition, at that point, we would use the 150 so that will come up to 250 to fund the whole design and planning phase. So that design and planning phase may not even use this much money. But this is what on the average. Now, this is an average for people who are designing brand new, 6,000, 8,000 square feet, new buildings, to us, which is a much smaller building that we're just renovating. So the design, the cost at most, they're suspecting is 250,000, but we may not even use that much.
So if you are approved and they give you this up to $100,000, right? To do the architecture,
Yeah.
100, the 150 plus the
Up to.
100 things.
Yeah,
That sounds to me like we're on the hook, because if they're giving us money for architectural drawings
mhm.
and we use their money, and then you come back to town meeting or CPA and we said, sorry, we're not gonna do it, we have a high school.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the hook. I mean, I
No,
don't think we
you're
can
not.
walk away after spending
Actually,
$100,000.
this is most likely what's going.
Is
to
that
happen.
guaranteed that we're not?
So what happens is that we have the design and plan, we put it before you, and then you have to decide at that point, does the town want to go on with the construction? And by then, we have this fundraised to support this.
Hopefully.
And then what happens, as we're going through construction, it's phased, so that the MBLC will give us $25,000 for this phase. $50,000, this one. It's like building a house. When you build a house, you don't give the contractor the whole amount all at once. You build the foundation, this is how much you get. And then you build the size, this is how much you get. When you put the roof on, this is how much you get. So the MBLC would do the same for us and give us the money as we're building.
But it still sounds to me that once we take their money, you know, the $100,000 and there's 250 in the kitty to start doing these architectural drawings, they are expecting us to progress.
Yeah, that's a good, that's a. really
And
good
that's my
question.
fear is then how much are you gonna be needing to fundraise that first phase? Because
Yeah.
then you might have to come up with $1 million
No,
or
actually,
whatever.
there are some libraries that did the plan and design phase. And then they don't apply for the construction phase.
So do they have to pay that $100,000 back that they get from the state?
No,
They just have a free plan and they.
so
can
we
walk
have a
away?
good plan. So at that point, the town can decide, do you wanna do stepwise? Or what do you wanna do at that point?
So we're not on the hook. We could take the $100,000
Right.
from the state, walk away with a plan.
Right,
So these are basically separate funding.
it's
uh,
totally
phases,
separate
funding,
because
yeah.
they're phases.
Phases, yeah.
So you're not signing your name on something that you're on the hook for a couple million. This is not what we're presenting.
So I guess my other question is staff and resources, and I know, I'm not gonna get too much in the weeds about this, but let's say we have this beautiful building, but we're still struggling with hiring staff, cutting staff, you know, library staff, because I know that's an issue right now. Library directors, we've gone through. So are we guaranteed to have the staff that can actually program this beautiful new space and
Actually, part of the design of the program of the space is that if you look at other brand new libraries, they have one desk that you can see into every single room. So one librarian at the front of the desk can view multiple spaces. Because that's part of designing a library, so that you don't have to have multiple librarians doing different things. They have rollaway laptops, so they can actually check you out, not at the desk, but at other spaces. They have a drive-through, so people who don't want to come in can just pick up their books at a lockbox.
yeah, I just worry, you know, not to get into nitty gritty, but, you know, population and, you know, we're gonna have a report just came out and in 75 years, we'll have a third of the population in the Berkshires and, you know, it sounds great, but I just wonder if it'll be utilized to the extent that you're talking about.
So I guess, as we're closing in on the end of this discussion, I would,
Thank you, I was gonna say.
I would like to say, like, my theme tonight, basically going through all these things is how the town of Great Barrington and how we need to take better care of all our buildings. And the courthouse, the fire station, Ramsdale Library, you know, all the 5 buildings Joe has talked about that he got his evaluation on. And we need to show our town that we're serious about maintaining our buildings as we are, because, you know, when that firehouse was being debated multiple times, voted against multiple times, it always came up that was the town never does any maintenance to their buildings. So I know Joe's trying to correct that situation now. I think after Pat and Ruby having a lot of the answers that were asked tonight, and there does seem to be stop gaps, and I'm hoping that that's all correct there. I think the 150 down, just to give us the opportunity to get 60% of well-needed funds for a building that I selfishly have grown up in basically most summers, to keep it open and to bring it, you know, to a modern state is very important. I do understand you do hear a lot of this chatter, 2 libraries, but that's a tunnel vision there. It's the opportunities that can be had of 2 separate buildings, 2 separate offerings and community space is amazing. So I think, you know, it obviously, these 2 have had a battle to get it this far. I think we put it in front of the voters and I'm sure there's gonna be a big turnout with everything that we have going in front of them, and hopefully it will be an accurate vote of what the people want, you know, so.
Joe? Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just put my DPW hat on here a little bit. Just to share some thoughts and some facts with you. Because you have a hard decision to make here, we don't know what our building really cost us, but I took the time to dive into the utility expenses for that building. And it varies between, you know, almost $20,000 and $21,000 a year. That's just for utilities. And then because we don't separate our labor and stuff and charge it to the buildings, I ran a very conservative, number on what it is for us as a DPW to clean it, shovel it, maintain the lawn, the landscape around, stuff like that. And without any overheads or benefits or pensions, which we know is a big part of our labor number, that's $27,000 a year. So this kind of number applies not to that building, but all the buildings in town. And you all have to make the hard decision about what's the benefit for the town. So the next part of my statement will be, if we move forward with this, somebody's gonna walk by us and say, Joe, what are you gonna do about this? You know, is my fear. And, you know, I heard Malcolm last night talking about artifacts and stuff like that, which are on the second floor. And we heard him say that they'll have to go somewhere. So does that call come to me as a hidden expense to bury in my operating budget to take these somewhere and package them up and move them? Store them, and we can't just put a box up the transfer station. You know, they gotta be in some temperature control, climate controlled environment. I'm just trying to show you that I see these hidden costs that might bite us later a little bit. And then you even have the fact that the artifacts, eventually you're paying rent to store them or whatever. What are you gonna do with that? Because, you know, I've been kind of told that they're not going back to the library. So
that decision hasn't been made.
Yeah. And then, the only other thing I just toss out there to think about is there's no off-street parking there. With the handicap accessibility we put in there and everything. So we basically have the on-street parking, and if we make a booming library, you know, cultural center, library type thing, is that our next problem? So I just wanted to throw these things out, you know, not as an anti-library person or anything like that, but more just what I see as these hidden costs and stuff.
Ann and then Phil.
Joe, can I just, but isn't leaving the building just to do nothing also cost?
Yes, of course, the big.
But we're not doing that.
I've never been given the charge of duties not to do anything with anything.
But I guess I'm just saying, again, I'm thinking of Housatonic School.
So we're paying it well over $50,000 just to have a blank building.
No, I guess I'm saying is if we don't invest in this building, we're then gonna have a rundown building.
Well, no, it's
Costing
just,
us- we are.
it's a tie and bond
Right,
study.
no.
Yeah, that's why we did the tie and bond study, so we can maintain the building.
Right, but if we're gonna maintain it, we should do something with it.
Oh, agreed.
Not just to have it,
Right.
but just use it, yeah.
No,
I just, I respect everyone's opinion on this. I can't support this. I think we have to prioritize our projects. Again, everything I would say, I would be repetitive at this point, but I respect all your work on this. But I don't think I can't support spending $150,000 to take on a project that I think will end up costing us money and that we really don't have. And I just don't think the town can afford to operate two libraries. I'm sorry. So that's my position.
Everybody's starting to put their money in now. Yeah, it's silly.
You're gonna pay either way.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
1.8 million just to do code. So do you have a plan B for the building?
We haven't gotten to that yet, but I'm just not agreeing with the plan that you're
Well,
proposing.
there's $3 million on the table now. There won't be, June 1st.
Lee, go ahead and then Ben.
So as I understand it, we are maintaining our building. So we're just doing it in a piecemeal fashion, but we are maintaining. I don't see it falling down. I don't see it. You know, it's not like we're gonna mothball it. So I think that ideally it'd be great to have a big pool of money and throw it all there, but I don't see that we're gonna be, you know, not maintaining the building. And to Eric's point, you know, I'm kind of looking at the bottom line right now, and I'm looking at the increase of taxes and the cuts that we're gonna have to make to services and things that directly affect the taxpayers. And I'm just honing on that. I would love to have beautiful buildings all around the town and, you know, do these big projects. And, you know, when we look at the school, we think of the children, you know, and it's not that we're looking that the library doesn't deserve it, but I'm really looking at the bottom line of how it's gonna affect taxpayers and how people are struggling right now. And I think it's just badly timed, and it hurts me because I really want to support this. But I just think, you know, for us to come back to taxpayers and say, you know, this is the increase to your taxes. I think it's just a really, really hard decision to make. And unfortunately for me, it's just not good timing.
I think the tax.
Ben and then go.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Eric's point, what we're doing today is putting this before the taxpayers, right? We're bringing this to town meetings
Exactly.
and making it
So you're
their
not making the
choice.
decision.
And I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
And I think also to the point you made earlier, Lee, about, you know, possibly looking at diminishing population, I think trying to kind of grab the brass ring of the programs that they're trying to do with this helps, you know, keep our population up. It brings families in, it provides the resources that actually makes this an exciting and accessible town to live in. So I think it can help reverse that trend if we are willing to go after this.
Okay, last two comments, Garfield and then Ann.
Well, I was just gonna say that our taxes go up every year, and it's not one thing, it's another. If you had $150,000, divide that, it's not much.
Yeah.
So I can't buy the concern with the taxes going, because they're going up anyway, for some reason or another, and it's going up quite a bit, I'm paying way more taxes than the thing I should be paying now, and that has nothing to do with the library or anything else, it just keeps going up. I don't think that $150 is gonna make a difference.
My concern is that the nuances might be lost on at town meeting.
Well, you
So
get to
the-
speak at town meeting.
No, I'm just saying that.
So then you go before the
Okay, well,
town committee.
Last comment.
I mean,
Ann,
look,
and
I
then we'll
think
go.
it sounds like, I'll just say, it sounds like we're gonna be sending a mixed
Mhm.
vote in front of the town, or at least to the public hearing, which then the voters get to hear both sides.
Julie, if you want to speak real briefly, just go and state your name and address.
Sorry for them.
No, it's okay.
George 15 Summer Street, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine.
Meeting, but I just have to say that Ramsdale is such a gem, and Housatonic is its own separate village, and these kind of spaces, I completely agree with Eric and the other ones who are supporting this project. It's a chance for the town to demonstrate that we care about these very important community building and maintaining structures, and I think libraries are critical infrastructure. And I've seen at other town meetings, the kind of like very easy spending on things that I say, you know, why don't we tighten our belts on a few other things? Like, I don't need tasers. I don't, you know, I was wondering, can't we just like maintain our equipment for a little bit longer so that we have extra funds for libraries, for parks, for things that really help the community, like the Railroad to Youth Project. I think these are the things that we have as a community to show the outside, the state and the government and other people that we are really passionate about. I totally agree that something like this would keep families, and I can't imagine, I don't live in Housatonic, but I love the buildings there, and I love when I have an opportunity to go to the Ramsdale. And I can only imagine that the many families that have moved in recently just see this as a treasure, you know? And I know that we're not gonna mothball it, but I would feel like 150,000 to give the opportunity for a grant application to go through is critical. I know like at my daughter's school, like we cannot fundraise without demonstrating to the grantors that there is 100% backing by the parent body for any kind of grant application to go through. And this is incredibly critical, because if we say no to this, it's going to be very easy to say no to other projects that are just as important that are going to eventually cost more. And I think if we just go through it, see what happens. It's only like phase one of an application. It doesn't bind us to any kind of large construction budget. I think they've done their homework. You know, I'm completely convinced that it's like a very laudable, very noble project, and a very easy ask, in my opinion. And as a taxpayer, and I'm very concerned about like an almost 25% increase in our property taxes this year, I'm going to town meeting, and I would definitely vote for yes for this and not prioritize a few other things.
Thank you. Do I have a motion from the finance committee?
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to not fund the planning and design phase for Ramsdale Library. Okay. No? One
Can I
try?
make a different
Yeah,
motion?
go ahead, yeah.
I will make a motion to fund the 150,000 of free cash for the design phase for Ramsdale Library.
Second,
Any further discussion? Nope. Done?
Aye.
I'm a no. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to fund the $150,000 for rent car.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm a no.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the $150,000. Would you like to see that reduced from the portion of free cash, general fund free cash that's being applied to the tax rate? Or lower the general fund portion of free cash that's remaining?
I'll let someone else speak, but my answer is what we're gonna talk about next, which is the operating budget. Well, first we're gonna talk about the ambulance budget, but then we're gonna talk about the operating budget, and we're gonna probably give you a charge to make a recommendation about free cash. I would like you to make that, you and Ally, and first make that recommendation. I think it's all one pot. because
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're-
yeah,
it's-
yeah.
we're-
And
If we're gonna do
Steve, I
something
don't
free
wanna,
cash,
I don't wanna, I do wanna talk about some of these other special articles, unfortunately.
okay? We may not get very far tonight, but that's
I
fine.
know,
You
sorry
have
about
every
that.
right to- No, it's fine.
I'm sorry,
Jim is-
but Mark, are you okay with sort of deferring on that?
I mean, at some point, we're gonna need to know where.
Right, I just think it's a
But it
later
doesn't need to be
Well,
right now.
let me
It's just
ask,
something to
how
think
is it
about.
envisioned here?
But Mark, wouldn't you do
It's-
it after you get everything together?
It's the vision that we didn't send it.
Mark,
Oh, because it was not recommended.
Right.
I see.
And that's why
wouldn't
the
you be
amount
making
for-
the funding
Yeah, it was-
decisions once we know all the numbers? Because that will be a very important part of it.
We could wait,
Also.
we could wait till the end. It just,
I
at some
think it
point
makes
before we
sense,
conclude
yeah.
tonight, I think it would be helpful
Yeah.
for us to know.
Yeah,
Are you asking us to reduce the general fund, the remaining general fund free cash portion, or
I
reduce?
think
the
that
amount
should be
that
really
we're applying?
decided in the context of the whole picture, really. Yeah.
Yeah, we have all.
Yeah.
Jim, who are we looking for?
His name is Joe Cresci.
Okay, he's on, so let's go to the,
He's there now.
he is.
Oh, okay.
Joe, I've unmuted you. So, we had a presentation by the Southern Berkshire Ambulance Squad last night, and there were some questions. So, if you would unmute yourself,
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
so, I'm sure we have some questions from both the Finance Committee and Select Board. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, okay, Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, very good. I just wanted to understand a little bit the definitions of the various items you guys put on the handout.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
We
for
followed
example-
the format that's used for our annual 990 filing. And that way I felt that there was consistency, that you could see what's publicly available, as well as we provided some details that are not yet audited.
No, that's totally fine. I just want to understand, like, for example, would you call charges versus what you call, let me see. So your charges are what you are putting in front of the insurance? Is that correct?
The first line item there of service receipts, common net, that would be the insurance reimbursements.
We're looking at something
We
different.
are looking at it, sorry, we have a handout we received from, I think,
Jim Santos.
He does not have that one. You're looking at the.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, he does not have that one. That was something I just made up
Oh, you
yesterday.
made it
before
up.
everything.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Jim, did you provide them the other financial statement?
Yes,
No,
I did, yes.
no, not last night.
Mark, did you hand out the other handouts that I gave you last night? No?
I didn't, because at the bottom it said confidential on it, and I gave it back to Kevin and I said, if this is confidential, please don't give it to me, because it's public record.
Do you want that? I have a copy of it. Do you want, would you like everybody to have a copy of it, Joe?
Is it
Yes.
something we could put on the
It's a
screen?
public filing though, no? Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know, whatever it said on it, it's,
It will become
having
a
it here
public
is not gonna
record.
be
It
a.
actually
it's
sounds like
going
public
public.
filing to me, but whatever.
I can make copies if you'd like to share.
Okay.
It would be acceptable to hand it out because for the first
I have
three
Oh,
columns,
that's a-
it is the 990 public filing.
It's a public
And
file.
Okay, thank you both.
The one there that you're looking at with the comparisons was something that I put together.
That's fine, yeah.
I
just
thought
wanted
it's
to understand.
important that you see where we had, we're deficient in funds for this.
Right, and that's fine, I just don't know what, what goes into each definition, that's all, really, yeah.
so while you're waiting for that sheet, the net receipts, if it matches up against the piece of paper that Jim had provided, that last year we had receipts of 1.3 million.
Oh, yeah. Those are all.
I got that quick.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. Is that my favorite? Stanford, but on this is something. Yeah. Not off press, yeah.
I was just wondering if that's going to be available.
We're handing them around now.
Okay, I didn't know whether there were not.
There will be.
Everyone will get one except for himself.
I thought of it.
Thank you.
I think everyone has one.
Not our distribution.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
What was he trying to do? We have to hear it out. I'll give you like 5 minutes to sort of look at this, just. Completely told us.
Anybody else want to talk about it?
What's his name, John? What's his name? What is his? Joe?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We just got the copy of the financials that you have. If you could just take us quickly and explain on the revenue lines, what are some of the sources?
Certainly. So the first line for service receipts, that is the insurance reimbursement that we receive after transporting a patient. Contributions are from our fundraising activities.
Okay.
Governmental grants are the funds that we would have received through during COVID. That was in 2020.
The COVID money, huh?
Yeah. The
Okay.
local government subsidies, that is the fee that we're charging to the 6 towns for our services. Contributed services are volunteer services that are provided to the squad. And then investment income is from our investment in Morgan Stanley.
Okay. Okay, and then, on the expense side, what are the program services?
Program services is a roll-up of the costs that we incur providing our service. And so we're required to divide between our operational functional expenses versus our management expenses when we
I see,
filed the
okay.
90.
For the filing, yeah, okay. All right, okay. And, the bad debt expense, these are your write-offs?
Correct. Right. What we
Okay.
anticipated on accounts receivable that then we end up
Or
having.
you haven't collected, okay, all right, okay, so, yeah, thank you, I mean, that's just kind of clarifies it for me, so. Yeah.
Anyone, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed this. I was just out of the room for a minute. Where in this budget is the money that you've received the past couple of years from the various towns? Is that in this budget? Did I miss that?
Local government subsidy.
The money received from the towns appears on our assets. So if I
I see.
provided you a balance sheet, you would see the 250,000 appearing as an asset.
But it's local government. stuff.
Is it local
Yeah,
government?
got it. Okay.
And so the other thing that has caused confusion too is on our budget, we do not show the principal payments on our loans. Instead, again, that comes from our assets. But what does appear on our budget is the debt service. So the interest that we're paying on our loans.
Yeah.
And hence, that's why we have to show a depreciation because we obviously credit our assets with the depreciation money in order to make those loan payments.
Other questions?
And, can I just ask you, in terms of the, your vehicles, you guys are leasing or,
No,
Or you
we take loans. We do take loans. There's no lease
Loans.
that we could find available. And so
Okay.
currently we have one truck that is near the end of paying off the loan. A second vehicle that the Southern Berkshire Emergency Services Foundation is making the loan payments. So that's guaranteed and that will be completed within 3 years. And so that becomes part of contributions. And then the third vehicle that is on order that will be arriving in July is the one that will be paid by the ARPA funds that were contributed by the towns.
Curious, are you pursuing any government grants? I think that there's nothing in, but are you applying for anything at the moment?
We are certainly pursuing them. One of our members takes the lead on that, and the current one is for replacement AEDs / 12 packs of things that they put on to measure the EKGs. And we're pursuing any other ones we can. We hired an outside individual who takes a percentage of the grant, but the fortunate part is that in the grant that we applied for, you can actually put in for the consulting fees. So it's great that it will be a wash, and we're hopeful that that will be coming in soon.
There is the grant also that I mentioned last night that we're applying for 150,000 for 3 new cardiac monitors, which we're replacing 3 that are over 10 years old.
Bill, you have a question?
Yes, just a very, just a real formal point or process point, and I certainly support the need for the critical service. applaud all your hard work for this. Can you, explain why you have not been able to complete your audit for 2022?
They sent us our draft copy this week. It was purely Adelson's capacity to handle the workload. We're quite discouraged by it as well, and glad to at least see it coming to an end, and that they will now start the 23. So it was nothing on our part of not providing the information. It was purely on their ability to have the staff to do it.
When do you, again, so we're the last audited financial is 21, correct?
That's right. And the 22, I have the draft copy that we have to review and will be signed off. I anticipate that's within probably 2 weeks that it will be complete.
Bill, they sent us what they considered to be a final copy the end of last week, and within an hour of sending it to us electronically, they sent us another message saying, don't use it because they hadn't added some notes to it that they wanted to add to it. So they are doing that now, Steve, and we're just waiting for them to resend us again the final copy.
So let me ask you a question. Who's doing your next audit?
We still stayed with Allison because we felt that, as Joe mentioned, they had issues, with staffing and the time that they didn't have the people to work on it expeditiously. But there was also some information on our part that they needed that, we were, because of changing some staff and everything, we were a little lax in getting them some information, so.
Okay.
Put some of the, I would flip the blame a little bit. I don't know if Joe would agree with me, but I would, there was some blame on both parts, and we apologize for that.
No need to apologize. So I am acutely aware of delays in audits throughout the nonprofit world. So totally hear you on that. Just as a formal point, my opinion is that the finance committee, and I'm only speaking for myself though, that we cannot approve this expenditure until that audit is complete. That's sort of I'm being very sort of formalistic here, but this is a major expense item in the town budget dispersed to a third-party entity. It's not like, it's all our departments are part of our town audit process. So just as a financial oversight matter, I'm just saying that I don't believe this should come for a vote by our committee until we receive the audit. Others will take different opinions, but that's just my process here.
Other questions?
I don't have a question, but I do see this is something we struggle with every year. But we also know very much that unneeded entities, and it needs to be covered every year.
Yeah, let me, can I speak again? Yeah, just to rewind the tape a bit. It's obviously a critical resource to the town. Even if we get the audit, in my opinion, having looked at the 21 audited financials, there's just not enough information in there to really allow me to make any kind of assessment of whether or not you're doing things right or doing things wrong. And obviously, I don't know the ambulance world, okay? It's a very technical business relating to insurance reimbursements. It's totally out of my lane. What I would say is, I'll reflect back on the comments made about the need to sort of kind of reassess the model at a higher level. I think that's pretty important. There is an extensive consulting report that the town paid for back in 2019. I believe the town paid for it or some other entity. So there's an extensive consulting report just assessing the overall arrangements for emergency services.
That was a whole regional plan. That was a county-wide regional plan.
Right, so I again, I'm generalizing here, but I certainly encourage you to go back and kind of try to rethink, the approach, because I just think we're obviously, and I think I'm agreeing with what you said the other night, we're going down a very difficult path. And a lot of the things that are trending negative in terms of the cash flow coming up for the business, for the operation, are not really going to change in the near term. The personnel will not become less expensive. And I wouldn't expect, Medicare reimbursements to start getting at a higher percentage. So the trend line is tough, but we need the service. Totally agree with that. So.
Everything you're saying is what we live with daily.
Right, I agree,
So you're not telling us, unfortunately, you're not telling us
Yeah.
anything that we don't know, and that's. the
Okay,
thing.
but so without being too long-winded, I think that the challenge that I have is that we really don't have a way to assess whether or not you're operating as efficiently as you could be under the current circumstances. I don't doubt the effort, just that we can't evaluate it, so it's.
In the past, the audit has been what we have provided, what
Right,
you've looked
yeah,
at,
yeah.
and what you've based your judgment on.
Right.
Joe, do you have any other comments?
Yeah, the audit doesn't include any operational metrics that about, all the inner details of your operation that can be assessed as to, basically, what are your reimbursement rates by activity, by, by function, so.
Do you receive that information from other service providers to the town of Great Barrington?
I think this is a very unique circumstance, because I can't speak to that broadly, but I hear what you're saying. But, we're by and large, we're funding departments that are part of our audit process. And those departments may be taking on outside contractors, and they're responsible for oversight there. This is a very, unique situation. So anyway, I'm gonna stop. All I'm saying is, as a technical matter, I think we need to wait for the audit before we approve the funding. So I'll.
I have a rather different take on this. I would just say this. I agree with your point about audited financial. I think it's a good practice. We know from our own experience, sometimes things do not happen as quickly as they should. Myself, even when I see audited financials and I can read them pretty well, I don't think I can still understand whether you are doing a good business or bad business, because I don't know the ambulance business. So, nor do I think anyone else here knows the ambulance business, and I don't really think we have an option right now. But, so I really would not want us to not fund this and have the town without the service, because it's just not possible. However, I would very much encourage, you and your team, just the way Phil was suggesting, to take a look and see if there are other ways to do this, because this is not sustainable.
To do what?
To provide the services. The
Oh,
way
believe me,
you
that's a daily thing for us.
No, I know, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, we had this conversation last year, we are having it this year, and hopefully, I don't know how you guys are going about it, and there's nothing I can suggest, because I don't really know your business at all. But I'm just hoping that, next year, when we talk, you guys will have some plan, some idea, some
Well,
strategy.
that was
Yeah.
3/4 of what I chatted with you folks about, told you folks about last night.
Right.
That's what when we were here a year ago, we were looking, that had a rosy picture, but a positive picture on what our income was going to be for the 2023 year. It didn't happen.
But-
All those figures that I gave you last night
No, I
show you
understand
that. And that, with those numbers, we came to the realization that we can't continue this way.
Right,
know that.
but I don't really
I
understand.
guess I'm not following what you're saying.
I think what I don't understand is how you can expect. I mean, I don't understand how being in the business, you don't see the writing on the wall, what's
Yeah.
happening, yeah, I know, but like, you need to do something about it, right?
We're gonna try. I can't tell you what it is right now, but believe me, we're gonna. We know that it can't continue the way it is.
I understand that. What I'm saying is, I really would want to hear something more concrete about what is the plan, what is your
When we
time?
have it, you will know. And like I said last night.
Jim, I can add one of the plans that's included into that financial statement, and obviously our budget as well, is that we are now looking to have a vehicle that will do interfacility transports, which generate more income using assets that we already have. So using existing trucks, we will likely still need additional employees, but the reimbursement will more than justify the price of the staff that we bring on board. So that is one example where we anticipate a $300,000 increase in revenue within that budget.
But let me just ask a question for clarification. Last night and previously, we've heard it's impossible to get staff. Is this one only EMT staffed, or does this have to have a paramedic?
No, this would be EMT staff.
So that's how you would get the staff for it.
And, you know, as I made very clear last night, it's hard to get both paramedics and EMTs.
Fairview Hospital will go so far as to providing nurse and a doctor if necessary for a very critical transport. So they're doing their part to try to help this to be sustainable.
I guess my concern, and I'm all for this, I'm not pretending to be an expert in finances, is that a few years ago you bought a fly car, which was sat in the parking lot because you couldn't staff it.
Right.
And now you have a method to make some money, because the inter-facility transfers, we've all agreed will make you money, but if you can't staff the 2 ambulances, how are you gonna staff?
That is a problem. That's a problem we have with it.
Can I just,
Yeah,
a
go
quick follow-up to Steve's question? I mean, I guess in this budget, you know, do we have salary adjustments to encourage more staff? Is that baked in here?
Yes, there are, yes.
So there would be an aggressive attempt to throw a higher salary to pull in the staff that you're looking to acquire to catch back up with your runs.
We had hoped to give some raises in January, the beginning of January, but we have, as the board has held off on that right now. It was a hard decision to make, you know, but we just don't have the extra cash to do that right now. We will, you know, we get what we have asked from all the towns in July, starting in July, we will have that extra money to go ahead and start doing that in July.
And bringing people on at a higher level.
Well, again,
In theory,
in theory, yes,
Yeah.
you know, as I said last night, the people just are not going into this field. The younger folks are just not going into the EMS field because they can go into another medical field and make a lot more money.
I have siblings that are in the EMS field in Kansas and in Wichita, and I asked them if they were an essential service there, and they are not either, but there's a big movement at the state in Kansas to turn it into an essential thing, and it would be embarrassing to me personally if Kansas recognizes them as an essential service before Massachusetts does, so.
I mean, don't we have a representative from the town on the board?
Yeah, I
who
was
knows
hoping,
a little
I was hoping we would hear something from
Could
them.
just speak to what, you know, again, someone who you agreed to have on your board, who sort of, you know, represents both organizations, and it'd be great to know.
Yeah.
That it's,
Adam Carr.
yeah.
I was expecting them at the meetings.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say that last year, if I remember correctly, we didn't have this kind of figures. It was all sort of vague. So one thing is I want to thank Joe and thank you for presenting like some figures. And of course, 2 of these are audited figures, but it looks like it's fairly consistent. In you know, the figures, I mean, they're going up, sure, but it still seems like overall, it doesn't seem way out of whack. And this is an essential service. So I hope we'll be able to fund it.
Do you have a motion for the finance committee? Are you ready?
I think you might want.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion to support the funding for emergency medical services at 205, 326, pending receipt of the audit.
Pending, excuse me?
Pending receipt of the audit.
When are they going to get that?
Before the town meeting?
Before the town.
Oh, way before that. I was
Yeah.
hoping we better have it within
Yeah, I'm actually before the public hearing.
Oh,
I'd hope to have it to give to you last night, but I didn't get that.
okay. Second.
Any further discussion? None?
Aye.
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 So I have a motion.
Just one question, if the audit doesn't come in, will this stop this?
Then we'd have to discuss it at the public.
Because that's one of my questions.
Yeah,
We're pretty sure.
I'm gonna say I guarantee it.
Okay.
And
We
again,
have
we
seen the
get,
draft and they only asked us not to use it
Okay.
because they were just adding, nothing to do with the figures, but they had wanted to add a couple of notes to it.
Okay,
And,
I just want to make sure that this is not
okay,
gonna hold up things.
I,
Okay, I second the motion.
So you make the same motion, the finance committee made, do I have a
Yes.
second?
Second.
Discussion, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you, Jim.
thank you folks very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Good night.
So we have a long ways to go here, so let's keep moving. Yeah. And, go ahead.
I think, I just want to make a comment. I realize this is a tough year in every way, but, I just want to say, you know, I think we're in the situation we're in partly because we have not funded stabilization, funds. We haven't made, contributions until recently. And to not fund stabilization funds, I feel we're just going down the same path. But I am willing to let that be a discussion for a future budget.
Anyone else on anything on the special articles? So there's two things we have to get done tonight. One is under capital. I want to get the police done because we schedule a meeting next week when the police will be not available. And we also, I want to do, we have to give some marching orders to the staff over the, operating budget as far as what we'd like them to come back with. So, go, Andy, you look like you want to say
Well,
something.
which do you want to do first?
Let's do the, operating budget.
Okay. I think, so yeah, so,
I recognize it.
okay, thank you. I guess I just want to say, I've been doing some of my own calculations here and of course, what's going on with my computer. But, as I look at it, just on debt service retirement insurance is an increase of about 7.25, which is just that, it's about around 7%. So that doesn't include the contracted salary increases. So I think we have to be realistic here. I think if we say to Mark or we say to the town, come back with 5%, I mean, it's just, we can't do it. We're obligated for the insurance, the retirement and the debt service, unless I misunderstand that. I want to make sure that is obligated payment. The salary increases are negotiated, and so that's not, and I wasn't able, it's hard for me to know in the salary lines, which are the negotiated salaries and all that, but my sense is that's going to add a significant amount.
They're all 100%.
No, not the amount, but what's the total, what's the dollar increase? So I guess what I'm thinking is to figure out what would be the percentage increase to the budget if just the salary increases and these three lines. And then,
And,
oh,
and I'm sorry to
Oh, no,
interrupt, but
please, no.
in a similar vein, it would be great to see that number when you net out the reimbursements from the other towns on the building inspector arrangement. Because a portion of that increase is just really based on sort of an expected reimbursement from the other towns a year down the road.
So, Bill, the interesting, I'll take credit for this, it was Ann's idea, but interesting idea was to fund that through free cash, because it's gonna go back to free cash. So that it would end up being a wash. That was what you had said.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
something I'd been.
I guess I won't take credit for it.
That's okay, but.
Yeah, I don't know what you think about that, but that kind of does reduce. Artificially, I understand, but it's more realistic. It's gonna go back to free cash.
Well, it helps us, it helps clarify the presentation, I agree.
Yeah.
We're still using our money.
Right, it's still the money.
But,
Right.
yeah, so, yeah, okay, I think we agree with what.
So yeah, maybe pull that out.
Can you just repeat that so I understand?
I guess what's gonna be the budget increase if we just are thinking debt service, retirement insurance and salaries that we're obligated to pay. And then what would that be? What's the percentage that is the budget increase, and I'm expecting that's gonna be somewhere around 9%, does that sound?
Are you talking about what is the increase of in the fixed cost?
Yeah, yeah. And fixed
No,
costs-
well, the other way to say it, the same thing is that a certain chunk of this increase is out of our control.
So you're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
figure out the fixed costs.
The fixed cost, that we
What's
can't ask you to come back.
We don't do
with us.
anything about it,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know, I would,
Well, that's not totally true, and I'm not suggesting it's true, but if we're asking them to lower it by a certain amount, there are ways to do it by
Yeah.
riffing, there are a lot of ways to lower the budget, even though you have fixed costs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should do
Yeah,
that,
no,
but
I
I
understand.
agree, yeah, so let's, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, let's make sure we give Mark very
Okay.
clear guidance on this.
I'm all for clear.
The other way to say it is that of the 12.9 increase, a chunk of that, a big chunk of that is out of our control. We can't ask you to change it. It's the collective bargaining agreements, the debt service. That's all, I'll use locked in as opposed to fixed. You know, we can't ask you to change that. So that, if you do that calculation, then that 12.9 increase becomes a much lower number.
Well, the increase is still there.
Well, no, I'm saying that the discretion, that the end result of that is that there's a discretionary increase in the budget. That's going to be a smaller amount.
I guess, let me say what I'm reading. I read that the total budget increase for the town operating budget, I'm not including wastewater or school assessment here, so just the town budget is an increase of 1,886,339. Am I right on that amount? Of that, 985,435 is debt retirement insurance, so about half, right? And then there's the contractual salary increases, which is harder to parse out. So a good portion of our increase are these three lines.
So I get where you're going. I guess my question is, I'm just gonna give you one example. A software increase that might be $2,000 more. Are you considering that in what category?
I guess I'm letting you, like, you know, I mean, I can't know all the things that I don't think we can know all the things that
Yeah.
can't move and the things that can. But there are some things that are clear to us can't move.
And there's the other part of this, which we've talked about in other meetings, is free cash. Using more free cash, to try to,
So why do we talk about what we're using for the free cash then?
because that will affect also how much has to be reduced, because part of it can be reduced by adding more free cash.
Right, but at the same time, you have to manage your free cash, because at some point you're gonna run out of free.
Absolutely understand that,
Right.
and you say that for a rainy day, it's boring.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, I understand that,
Questions
because
there.
next year, we're
Right.
gonna pay for that,
Yeah,
I understand that,
exactly,
yes,
exactly.
absolutely.
But it's pouring, not, I see, when I look at this budget, I don't see massive increases to some degree in the general departmental budgets and things like that. It's really in the debt service.
You're absolutely right, and what you're saying, from someone who will say in a very simple way, all the increases, they're not because there's extravagance in here.
Right.
There are things that we're obligated for, but we still would like it to come down. And you can only cut so much without it hurting, so therefore look at other ways. How do we increase revenue? Well, the only way you can, that I know is through free cash. And we know that we have healthy free cash coming in for next year. We hope, we assume, but you're right, you pay for it next year, because if you use 250,000. If you don't use the same thing next year, it's an increase next year, but you're kicking the can down the road, this may be the time to do it.
My concern here is really when I look at the budget, and I have to say, you know, I really don't see any fluff, just you guys did it last year. Again, I think it's a really thorough job. My only concern here is this amount of borrowing. And I really feel that that's something that definitely I missed last year. Because didn't really get fully, you know, what will be the annualized cost of what we were basically voting for. And I really don't want us to make that mistake again. And given the the very high interest rate environment, which we will continue to be in definitely this year, to me, that should be really a priority for us, more so than the operating budget, because I think the operating budget, I'm sure there are places you can cut. And I believe that, it's always the case, but it's not gonna be a very substantial. But the piece where we have to be very, very cautious this year is the capital budget. I mean, that because of the cost of borrowing, because if we really go with that, we are gonna cripple this town, going forward. It really, we should be very, very.
So my answer to that, and the reason we have another meeting coming up
Yeah.
is because I'm not gonna wait till 9 o'clock at night and try to look at the capital like it's
Right.
a piece of cake. It's not.
It's very complicated,
It's
yeah.
very complicated. We have to decide what our priorities are
Yeah.
and there may be things that we think are priorities, but they're low priorities and we're not gonna
Right,
do
right.
it. So I agree with you on that. And the only capital I think we'll get to tonight, maybe we'll get to a couple more things, is the police, because I wanna do it with the chief here. It's not fair to him to do it without him here. He's on Zoom. Yeah, but because next week he's not available, so, but I absolutely agree. That's not gonna affect this year's budget, but it's gonna affect you, next year and
And all the
years
years
to come.
after, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I guess, and I've heard a few, and maybe I missed it, but what is the free cash number as of right now? With the way the numbers are written?
As presented in this budget?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you a different way. I think Eric's asking, after we use the free cash in this budget, what's remaining?
Yes.
Well, depending on $150,000.
Right.
Yeah, give or take 150.
Just over 1 million. It's on page, it's tab
It's on
5, page 3.
Five. $861,000.
And what was it last year after we,
6.
so it's usually not over a million.
The goal
That
is,
was over a
the
million.
goal is $1 million.
The goal is
Yeah,
not-
Goes to the
yeah.
minimum of-
Page.
At what point does it hurt our bond rating or could? If we have, the top bond rating now, so I'm just wondering how it would. Well, if we get to a place where we're not getting certified for the amount of free cash that you've been getting certified for, it could affect your bond rating. What, do you have kind of a number, like if we get something? No, but I.
Depends on the environment every year.
Yeah, so every year. I mean, do you have a recommendation?
But I mean, keep in mind, cannabis free cash is decreasing.
Yes,
Not,
absolutely.
not just the impact fee, but the actual.
Yeah,
free
that would take it,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely.
And we knew that would happen, but it's happened. Yeah, no surprise, but you're right.
And then, you probably have it here, but what's in the capital, stabilization fund and?
Oh, it was something.
That's also here on tab 10.
Okay, so,
All the
what is it?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's,
This is what we have.
stabilization fund is 700 and 74, 7400.
Well, we have 1.48 million.
And
Well, that's a
capital
capital.
stabilization,
Yeah.
and then capital stabilization is
Yeah.
1.5.
Yes, yeah.
So what's our charge to the staff?
I mean, again, I guess what I was saying earlier is I recognize there isn't a lot of room to look at each other. Maybe. Right, and you can have 10,000 out here and wow, I agree. I made a couple, there were a few places where we did ask for some, I don't know if you probably took notes on this too, Mark.
I did check some,
Yeah, so maybe just look at
Lines.
those. I mean, I agree. I think we're in a tough operating budget year because of our debt service.
Sometimes I just think it comes down to, as we were going through all these things, what we want and what we need. And I think with the impending debt, I think they have to go back and say, well, I really want this. But, I could go and put it out there later and not put it in this budget. And again, it might be just slashing 10,000 here or 15,000 there, but, I was pretty vocal about the kitchen at the senior center. a commercial kitchen and, you know, that might be something, if it were me, I'd slash it and say, you know what, not this year, we just can't take on debt. We gotta pay our debt.
None of this is easy, and, I like all Ann's comments that there's no fluff in this budget and.
You're back to ops.
Sorry?
You're back to ops.
Sorry?
Operations.
Yeah, operations, yeah, back to operations, yeah, there's no fluff here, but. Tell me if this is impossible, can you generate a list of cuts? And I'll throw out a number of $500,000. And the easiest cuts, you know, ranking by degree of difficulty. And allow the committee to sort of take a look at that and make a call as to what, you know, and I that's a big number, and I kind of pulled it out of the
What
air.
was the number, Phil?
I said 500.
So, Phil, a couple things. One is maybe doing that in combination with free cash. But you may not think that, that's fine. The other is, I don't like the Chinese menu approach. We end up sitting here saying, well, take A, don't do B, but do C, let's vote on
No,
that.
I agree, and I think we spoke and I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's rewind the tape there. So that's not where I was headed.
Okay,
It's, you're, you know, I'm asking you for $500,000 of cuts. Clearly understanding that's a big number.
Big number.
Okay, so
What percentage?
I'm
What
just,
percentage is that, Phil?
I'm not a human calculator.
we're disappointed, it's already worked.
You know, so I think I feel that I have a responsibility to ask you for a bigger number. Okay. That's the other way to say it.
Whatever you decide, we'll
Yeah.
get, we'll.
So let me just throw out one problem with that.
Yeah.
When we start to do that.
Yeah.
There could be human cuts. In order, there will be, and when you do that.
Yeah.
If you're not serious about doing those.
Yeah.
It causes morale problems. So if we're serious about doing it, that's fine,
Yeah,
but if we're not serious and it's just an exercise, they're human beings we're dealing with.
okay. 100% heard on it. Okay. I perceive that there is a taxpayer morale problem.
I agree.
Okay, so. You know, we're all paid the big bucks to make these difficult decisions here. I think
All I'm saying,
Yeah.
hear me
you
again,
know,
if we're willing to rip, if that's what we're willing to do, great, that we need to do that, I agree.
Yeah.
But if we're just doing this as an exercise and don't plan on
agreed.
doing it.
That's a very good point. I don't wanna waste Mark's time and the staff's time. They've got a million other things to do. I think okay, let me bail out of this a bit. I'm not sure how to do this efficiently, but I think we need to wrestle with a bit some significant reductions to the budget.
Agreed.
And figure out how we feel about it. And I want, it has to be done in a way that's reasonably efficient for the staff to put that
Let me
together.
just make a suggestion then, Ann, if you don't
I
mind.
guess I find myself thinking then, if we cannot touch the operating budget, we are gonna really have to go in front of the town and say, we are not borrowing. As we are borrowing absolutely as little as possible, because
But most of that doesn't affect the
I know,
bottom
but
line.
that's what we always end up in this, that it's like, oh, we can borrow because.
No,
it
no,
doesn't
I'm not
affect-
saying that.
And that's why we're looking at almost $1 million in debt increase costs.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is,
I know, it's not gonna fix
it's not
this
gonna fix
year,
anything.
but I think I
for
would
this
feel more comfortable going in front of taxpayers and saying, we get it. This is a really tough year, but we're making some tough decisions and borrowing so that we are not in this situation again next year. No one's gonna be happy.
No, I get that. So I'll give you, and then leave. If you're gonna ask Mark to do that.
Yeah.
At least if we're going to say reduction in force, just put down a line item without listing positions.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm,
Cause I'm not convinced that we wanna do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
I mean, I don't, maybe I've, led people in the other direction tonight. I'm not eager to be the bad guy at this point, okay?
I'm not sure we have a choice.
Okay, but we have to, there is a lot of unease in our town on the taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm not stating the obvious, so, should we be? I think we have to come out, I feel, I'm gonna be very careful, I feel I have to come out of this process. Holding my hand over my heart, saying that we investigated everything we possibly could in terms of trimming the budget. And we stopped short of doing things that involve, really cutting at the core of our town staff and the services that they provide. And so we sort of have to go through this a bit, and it's very painful and uncomfortable.
Yes, I agree. You and I are agreeing on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that works.
I agree with it. But so again, so I throw it back to Chris and Mark and Allison. I defer to your judgment as sort of the way to go about doing that in an efficient way and allowing us to make some decisions.
Lee and then Elena, and then I'll let them speak.
So, I'm just thinking about the taxpayers and what's this gonna affect the bottom line? How much are my taxes gonna go up? And so I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm watching this, I just wanna know, what this 12.9% would look like to my taxes. Is there a goal? What's our goal? Like, is, an extra $200 a year, okay? Is $1,000 a year? I feel like if we bring it back to the taxpayer watching this and, I'm struggling to feed my children, what's this gonna cost me? And figure out what that goal is. What are we okay with presenting to the citizens and saying, okay, well, we know based on the tax rate, whatever, expect this amount. So then we can say, okay, we tried, but I feel that without doing that, without being able to translate that, and I know that you could do that, but somehow it'd be
Can I,
easier to have that
I
goal, that
dovetail on
target.
this? Do we know what their increase would be to the median?
Tab
Tab five.
Yeah.
See,
What was
tab five, one of the problems is, and then I'll let you go, one of the problems is, what's acceptable to me is about a 3% increase. Okay, we're not doing that.
Right.
Okay, we can't do that. So now it's become, well, it doesn't really matter what's acceptable, because we're not gonna meet that goal. How low can we get it? Close to that, well, it's not gonna be very close, but what can we do to get it close to that? Because I'm usually at 3 or 4%, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Lee. I think that the way I would suggest we do it, we say, this is gonna be the target increase, and yeah, it will not work for everybody, but this is what we think may work for most of the people. And then just kind of go from there and just try to, fit the numbers into that, because, and maybe we'll find out, maybe it's just like, the exercise will say, you have to cut, I don't know, 5 people, or the exercise will say, it's not gonna happen no matter what. But at least we know, where we stand with it, but I really think it should start with a target, tax levy for an individual tax.
Which I think was how I started this conversation.
Okay.
And we're back.
Oh,
No, I'm agreeing.
But that match.
Just like
Saying
redundancy,
median tax
I know
bill, do the math.
everybody here knows that, but I have tab 5 that shows taxes per 100,000 asset value. But we also have to keep in mind how everybody's assessed value has skyrocketed this past year as well, so.
So, but the tax
Yeah.
levy should give you, that you should kind of put it in.
Right, I guess I
Yeah,
just mean, I know, there's always the comments of, all right, so this number went down, but your assessed
Right,
value
it
went
went
way
up, so
up,
you
and
look at
it's
the-
still a pension and
you look at
at
the
the
bill,
end of it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so that's.
Yeah.
Is there a
that's all I'm saying.
calculation for the average, the median home, that how much it would be, like, is that
Well, I-
somewhere or here?
Tab 5.
And I'm looking at that, which.
Well, so that what it says is 84.79 per 100,000.
So can someone do the calculation so that,
Second thing.
Second page? But this is,
From the right. median
so
tax
if your house is 400 and with the 440, your increase will be, so this is,
okay,
wait, but this, the math is wrong here,
Yeah,
because how
we see
can this
that.
be?
just looking at that.
Basically.
So it should be 600, it should be 676.23.
What, how are you seeing that? What's wrong?
6,112 to 6,798 is not 1,176 difference.
What's it supposed to do?
So this 23% projected increase in assessments is an inaccurate calculation.
So what should that be?
So
Whatever is six.
Yeah, we do that calculator, you're right.
Yeah, let's start with that. I think that's a good.
I have the median numbers.
Yeah.
From your November, whatever tax meeting, and it says that the median tax
11%.
is $6,113.
Yeah, it's 11.
And this, we are looking real estate, we are not talking school tax.
Yeah,
right?
just
And the median value of the house,
Well,
sorry, no, that was the previous year. So the change from the average value is $548,589, and the average tax is $7,620 for real estate. So
you're saying the 440 that he has is not.
that was the, oh, sorry,
Yeah, so
you got it,
different.
that
Yeah,
four
you got it.
forty is the medium, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
so I
right.
think we should
And
go
the
off
me-
this.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
medium and then they are average, so medium is 440, 100, and median tax is 6,113,
So-
and average is 540.
So can you give us the correction?
It's 11.2.
So what is it?
11.2.
Percent.
Instead of 22.
Instead of 22%?
Yes,
It's, what is it?
11.2.
Okay, so what is that? Can someone do the, calculation? So the median tax bill is not 6,798 or
No.
increases in 1,000?
Yeah,
What is
it's
it?
the increase decrease, that's a typo.
We'll give you an.
685.
685 is the increase.
Okay, so we're looking at 685, okay.
Yeah.
Based
And what
on
was the median increase this year?
this budget.
See, I don't
Well, the
understand
increase-
actually also on the page, that's the estimated tax rate calculation, so I think it's page 1 of tab 5. It says that the taxes for fiscal year 24 went down. Mine didn't go down.
Which one?
Your tax.
That was the tax rate went down.
No, oh,
The tax
okay,
rate
but the
went down.
assessed value went
Yeah,
up.
And that's what,
Right.
going back to Eric's statement.
Oh, okay.
So we're saying that it's $685 increase on
That
typical.
sounds right, because
Is
I,
that what we're saying?
Yes.
If the budget is passed as presented. Okay, so that's a good target. So,
That's a
average
good target?
citizen, they're looking at their bill, $685 extra.
Yeah.
Are we happy with that? Are
No,
we not happy with that?
Okay.
What are we trying to target? We're trying to get $300. Is that palatable?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a way that I think people would understand it. And
So-
that,
So now the other flip side of that is, you're right, it's palatable, what's realistic?
well,
Right.
there's a meeting, yeah.
Yes. Go
But
ahead.
I also think that the tax numbers are somehow distorted because we have in it the commercial properties. And the asset value there is being either flat or decreasing. So we have a little bit of a joke.
This must take it.
Well, we don't have a split tax rate.
Yeah, no, this is.
No, no, I know, but that's what I'm saying, exactly, the value of the private property is going up.
Yeah,
and
this is the
so
average.
that- So you are gonna end up with a bigger
slightly
share
greater burden.
on the residential.
Yeah, we're just saying this is the average.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl, go ahead.
So the average is distorted because it's average taking into the account the commercial tax,
Right.
yeah.
Carl.
right. We have a aging population. Last look, it was 23.6%, which is almost a quarter of the town. That's probably half of that quarter probably are gonna be in trouble. We're having a hard time already. I might have to, take into consideration that STD that, Vivian may be posed, it might have to be used more, maybe it should be out in front, but that's a lot of folks. And I don't know if a quarter of our population can afford, I don't know what to do about it, I'm just stating that, it's a lot of money for people that aren't working or on fixed income, social security, et cetera, to deal with. Even though it only sounds like 608, that's a lot, somebody doesn't have it.
So. And I agree with you, so what's our marching orders? It's not that simple.
Well, I mean, we did go through the operating budget and I guess I just want to say, I see in Mark's face that it's not clear how you're gonna do what we're asking you to do. I do think when we went through the operating budget, we all raised, I mean, maybe we should take a little bit of the heat here. And, I mean, you would raise something, Donna, you raised one, I have some notes. I mean, you want us to go back? I mean, and I know this is time consuming.
I'm
But
fine.
places where we thought there might be some cuts and then ask you to go and look. And you could say, you know what, this isn't possible.
So we don't have time to.
I'm not
So
saying.
my
we do
next
that
question
tonight.
is,
Yeah,
we have a meeting on Tuesday. I know Phil was preferring not to. Do we also meet Wednesday? I don't see us finishing this if we're gonna do that in one meeting. I'm not against it. I'm just saying, let's be realistic.
no, I agree too.
Yeah.
Or we do with homework, and we all come to the next meeting with our proposals and go around and say, are you okay with this? And then we add it up.
It's still,
Can
we're
we
still
do
gonna
a
have to.
backup
but-
for a Wednesday
but have
meeting if,
Have
you
it
know,
with us.
is that possible? If we don't get everything done, because I think at least that gives a fair shake to the taxpayers.
I don't
and the
think this room
citizens.
is available next Wednesday. It's the problem. The boys keynote addresses.
I guess I'll just throw out another option, which is could we use the date that was scheduled for the hearing for another meeting and delay the hearing?
So hearing the advertise.
We posted the agenda, but we could.
I mean,
And
I know, I think there's, everybody has such an
No, we're ahead. We're okay.
so we have two members of finance committee who can't come to the hearing date. Anyway, so.
And I'll tell you right now, if we start to move the hearing, I am not free till the end of March. I know my schedule is full.
I'm missing in the middle of March as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's maybe try to come up with another idea other than.
Can we meet at the firehouse or something?
well, that's the other thing. Phil, Eric's got a good point. Can we meet at the firehouse Wednesday?
Yeah, I just can't make it this day.
I know you said it was preferable not to.
Yeah, I was,
Okay, that's all.
I was low, I was,
You were being nice about it.
yeah, I was hiding it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Yeah.
We either meet on Tuesday, starting at like 5 o'clock and be prepared for a 4 or 5 hour meeting.
Or two.
We're meeting Tuesday anyway.
Two candy balls.
Two candidates. I mean, that's the only other choice.
Yes, Mark, how do you feel about this alternate approach, which is we come to you with some suggestions?
You know, I'm comfortable with that. When we reviewed the operating budget,
I-
I asked for a level budget, and if you look at page 32 of tab 6, we reduced the request by $452,000 already. So we've been through this budget many times. And that was my concern with the $500,000 number. That would be significant program service cuts, staffing cuts. It's not to say we can't.
We can do it, but if we're gonna do it department by department, which is how we would go through it, the $10,000 cuts are gonna be a lot of them.
I know.
Like $110,000 cuts to.
Sorry, I'm,
Are you serious about a 4 or 5 hour meeting? I think you could really.
We have no choice. We're running out of time.
So do we come to the next meeting with our cuts, our proposed
No, I
cuts?
think we just go through. I mean, you know, you can be prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
Yeah, be prepared, but.
Amount, so we
Yeah,
can
so-
maybe add it up and say, hey, with all of us, we come to.
Put something out to the department heads and have them, I mean, they've already looked, but as I said, you know, they wanted a lot, but, you know, is it
Well,
a
they didn't get a
want
lot.
or a need? I mean, you know.
Levels, I would say this is a level service budget, so any cuts beyond this point.
Well, it's gonna hurt, but the debt, it's just,
well, the debt is the whole, well, I mean,
it might be another kettle of fish, but you know what? When we get our tax bills, we have everybody in town going, Jesus, what the heck happened?
so let me rephrase what I was starting to say. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay,
That was inappropriate. I definitely want to talk about the debt. I put together a schedule I'd like to share and review when we're coherent and maybe a little more rested. But I don't think a line by line on the operating budget makes sense. And I'm not even talking about the time and it not being fun. I just don't think we know, I don't think I know what I'm talking about. It's all inner workings of the town staff operations. And I don't feel comfortable making these sort of line by line assessments as to sort of what we need and what we don't need. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Another way to do it, I've done it a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So we'd say to Mark, come back, and this is playing off your idea, just without names. What will it look like to cut 100,000? What will it look like to cut 250? Well, adding on to it.
Right.
And then we say, okay, we can live with 100. We can't live. There's just too many services.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. You said it in a much more clear way.
Or I just didn't understand you because it's late and I'm tired.
So I think that's a much better approach. And it's easier for us because they do more of the work. But hopefully it's somewhat easier for you because you can, you could sort of just do it with your staff and have difficult conversations internally, and we're not sort of looking over your shoulder.
Eric?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make sure, and I know you and Ann already stated this, but I mean, I think moving the building inspector line to free cash, since the portion's coming back, I think that's like step one, right? And then after that, we ask for, I was thinking like a couple percent, or whatever,
But if we do, what we would do with the building inspector, and I'm no expert on this, is just take the equal amount of free cash and offset it.
Right.
Add it to the free cash, I agree. I say we ask you, ask the town manager and staff to come back with cuts of 100, 250, and 500. We'll see what magnitude that is. We know it's a lot. We know it's crazy.
And these are just cuts in the ops budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't even begun to start the capital. We will tonight in a few minutes.
Would it be helpful, Mark, if I don't even know if this is allowed, like, I had some things that I made notes on that I just email what's on my personal mind. Just because again, we're gonna end up voting these budgets anyway, and we may end up having these discussions about things we want taken out anyway.
My only problem with that is, I would like to see us do that in a public forum. I don't, so if you send to him stuff, I send to him stuff, and now he's got a whole bunch of stuff that we may not all agree with.
But we're gonna vote on these budgets anyway.
Yeah, but we're
This
gonna take 3 times as much time, because Mark's gonna cut something, there's 2 people, the finance committee said it was okay, and 5 select board
But now-
members say, oh, there's 6
Okay,
reasons you
all
can't
right,
do that.
I
The other thing, I mean, and I think it's been said a few times, is, the operating budget's one thing. I think where my focus is going is towards the capital stuff, right? So, and that's painful too. I feel like the operating budget here, like, they were just starting to gain ground, starting to get footing. Staff is just starting to come back and be secured in the places. So unfortunately, I'm gonna buy new struts and shocks maybe next year, I'm gonna buy new tires and I don't like saying that, but it's, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, unfortunately. So,
Yeah. I think to your point earlier of just risking demoralizing our staff, I think that's a huge consideration to take into all of this.
Yeah.
It's just because the effectiveness of our town government comes to the effectiveness of our staff. And so if we risk ruining what I feel like has been good momentum built by Mark and his team over these last few years, then we have a whole host of other problems, so.
Yeah, at all costs. So, is there some sort of motion we can make? And I'll look at the finance committee first, because.
I'm at a total loss.
Okay, so I think where we are is that we're making a motion that we're gonna ask the town manager to put together some hypothetical cuts to the budget totaling 100,000, 250,000, and $500,000. And then we would be reviewing those possible cuts.
I think 500,000 is too much. I think that, I don't see how you're gonna do that with that kind of staff, and I don't know how you're gonna come in front of us and tell us what staff you're cutting without letting the staff.
It wouldn't cut the staff, it would just say reduction in force, $150,000.
I think we'd just be trying to be creative, like really digging deep.
And the only reason, Ann, I agree with you about the 500, but I think it's important we see the magnitude of what that means.
Exactly, I think.
So you mean how many staff, you'll say, we'd have to cut this number of staff to.
I think we have to cut services and staff.
And
I think
staff.
expecting us to provide the same level of service with a reduced staff is not.
Right, right.
No, I
No,
think
yeah.
level service is out the window.
No, agreed.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, but I think we need to see that.
Mhm.
And I think that's important.
And you think you can do these three different calculations before Tuesday of next week?
I think 500 is impossible.
Is impossible or not?
Impossible. But
I think try.
let's give it a fair shot. Like I said, trimming the first 426. 426, well, I can't remember what that number was, but even that was challenging, as you already heard during our presentations.
I've had to say about demoralizing our staff, but at the same time, they're gonna get a lot of people demoralized because they're taxes, so.
We can do both, by not demoralizing the staff, but still look at what it would take to cut.
I think it's important to see the numbers, really. I hear you, but I think we need to know that, because if those questions will be asked, we can say, this is what it would mean to bring it down by $500,000. It's just unrealistic, you know? That's an unrealistic option, yeah.
And I would actually ask
Yeah.
that we look at recommendations for free cash also in that motion.
Now, in terms of how much we have left over.
How much they recommend we use, obviously, they made one recommendation, but is there a second?
Okay, I agree, yeah, that's totally part of it, yeah.
Oh, so that was your motion, is that right?
I think I made a motion, yes. Yeah. Does anyone want to second this? Okay.
Motion was,
No, we're all, So I'm making a motion that we ask the town manager to put together a list of hypothetical cuts to the operating budget. One list would be 100,000, one list would be 250,000, and one list would be 500,000.
Second.
All those, any further discussion? All those,
I just want to say I would prefer not to do the 500,000.
Okay.
It's only, again, if we're not including the insurance, debt and retirement, we're looking at about $1 million.
No, I hear you, so,
I think the budget totally and half including itself.
okay, so if our motion then fails, and we could amend our motion. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, Madonna?
Aye.
No.
I'm an aye. Okay.
You want to make the same
I'll
motion?
make the same motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion for discussion first.
Discussion.
I think I'm in Ann's court here as far as 500,000. I understand to see the implement of how drastic it could get. I don't need to see that, because I'm not gonna vote for that many cuts. And considering the time frame we're on, I don't see the need, because I know I'm not gonna vote for that many cuts personally. So that's all I'm.
Just to that point, Mark, how long, I mean, as you do these calculations, I think like, is it kind of doing the work? How long would doing the $500,000 version of the cut? Like, how much work do you think goes into each one of these? I know it's.
It's hard to say. I mean, the first 426 took many meetings, so. I think it will take some time, but.
Like, I think it's informative to have it, but I also don't want to waste your time, because I think you're right. I don't think there's a world where we can really function at that level, so it's, I don't know.
Okay, all in favor?
Can we reiterate the motion?
Yes, the motion was to have three scenarios, 100,000, 250, and 500. I'm in favor. Anyone
I
else?
second it. Do we have a second? I
Yeah,
did.
we already-
I'm in favor of it. Aye.
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 So that's 3 opposed?
No.
Opposed.
I'm opposed.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
It passes 3-2. Okay, now let's go on to capital, which is section 7. And we're gonna do the police first, but I don't think I think we're gonna have to do more than just the police tonight because we only have Tuesday nights coming up, so we'll see how far we can go. Okay. We've had the presentation. The police have shields, radios, and police cruisers. Their total is $183,050, all out of the tax levy. The chief is on the line. Do we have any questions?
Are there grants for the shields that you could get and you could take this off the 26.3?
I have looked into that and there is not at this current time.
Other questions?
Is it possible to extend the use of those two cars? Those cruisers?
So my answer will be, and chief, I won't step on your toes, but you may appreciate this. They have a 2-1-2-1 rotation. So it's then gonna be a 1-2, or if we don't do it at all, it's gonna be a 0-3, and we're just kicking the can down the road. Chief, go ahead and.
Oh,
No.
Yeah, you're right there. And also, supply chain issues have been an issue for getting the cars. So, we'd like to try to get them ordered as quickly as possible just to get them so we don't have that increased maintenance. Additionally, there is a large increase after July 1 of this year for the models that are coming up. So I was recently speaking to the vendors, and they were really trying to push if we could do it earlier so we could save quite a bit of money. But unfortunately, this is for next year's budget. I explained to them. So a lot of this increase that we expect is the increase that we have no control over.
I just maybe say something about the shield.
Increase
Yeah,
debt?
sure.
Well, I've been here 46 years. I don't think I've ever remembered an incident, I could be wrong, please correct me, that we've needed to have all 9 or 10 police cars out at once. So I think maybe we should cut that number of shields. It's not gonna happen. We're not gonna ever have a situation. I can't say ever, but I put money on it. We've never been in a situation that's gonna have all 9 cars and all the police out at once.
Well,
I
some
know it costs more.
of the cars are specialized cars that are unique. For example, one of the cars is actually we purchased through the Comfort Dog program through donations. So we had to do that. So that counts. The other car, the Patrol K9, is just dedicated to that. So that's kind of a unique car in the sense that it's not shared because it does have the dog in it and the dog equipment. There has been events where we have deployed most of our cars, yes. Not often, but it does happen. Or we have a breakdown, and then we have a car out of service for extended period of time because we can't get parts or what have you. So that's it does happen, but not often.
We have a car that's broken down, we can't get parts, then we won't need that shield for that car.
Well, you go ahead.
So, Chief, so you mentioned it was $3,500 per shield, is that correct? So,
If you buy less than 10, it's $3,500 a shield. If you buy 10 or more, it's $2,500 a shield.
so if we were looking at the shields, is it helpful to even have a few or none? Like, is this something that you would think a program would have to kind of go all in, or is it something that you could try maybe 1 or 2, see how they go? And if it's needed, you're able to call for a car that has a shield, much like when we need a support animal or a comfort dog, we make sure that the comfort dog is in the car.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reason I'm proposing this project is really for officer safety and to ensure that the officers have a means of defending themselves if they are encounter any type of hostile type situation, and or probably to de-escalate if we are involved in that type of situation. You can't predict when it's going to happen. This is not a tool that you can wait for somebody to respond with. It's something that we're going to need readily available at a second's notice. So the reality of it is, it would be nice to be able to have that time, but in our world, we have to make decisions in fractions of seconds.
So I guess is one shield helpful, or is it, I mean, I'm kind of zeroing in on shields obviously, but is one shield at all helpful, or is it no shields?
It would be helpful to that one person if that person was the person who was the first person to be exposed to that situation. So you're rolling the dice to say that that person's helps them, but it might not be available to the person who's the first on scene and doesn't help them at all. But knowing that it's back at the station in a car that's sitting there because the officer's working on a report who has the shield and he's 5 minutes out. So that's why I'm looking to equip the cars with it, so the officers have it readily available in a second, the second that they need it, not having to wait for it. It's not one of those tools that you just wait to have deployed. You need it when you need it.
So following up on that, has there been incidences that you needed a shield in the past 5-10 years?
Absolutely.
And what happened to the officers were injured, or?
Well, I can think of the one was Officer Finnerty, who had a barricaded subject in an attic, and he had a knife, and he started throwing stuff down at the officer as he had tried to go up into the crawl space into the attic, and that would have given him some means to protect himself from getting hit with things. That's just one example. This came right to my to my memory. There's been other situations too, where officers have been assaulted or attacked.
Well, let me just ask, I know when you buy more, you get a better price, but when you buy more, you actually pay more. So it's not really like you're saving, because you're paying out more. It's just like
Ideally, we would need 9, and to do 9 would be more than to buy 10. It would cost more to buy 9 than to buy 10.
Okay.
I guess, I mean, Story, is there any, again, Steve, you were pointing out if we only do 1 cruiser this year, we'll have to do 2 next year. Given how hard this budget year is, and hopefully we can get things more under control for next year, would it be at all possible to extend the life of one of the cruisers for 1 more year? And I guess, maybe that's something, because this is coming out of the tax levy, it's not borrowing. So I don't know if this is something to talk that maybe.
No, we're gonna do capital.
Okay.
I understand that it's mixed, but it.
Okay,
they're gonna
so I
really
guess, would it be at all possible to consider 1 cruiser lasting 1 more year just to help out in this really rough budget year?
I'd have to speak to Sergeant Carlotto and really evaluate it. We did this a couple of years ago, if you recall. I think it was three budgets years ago that we skipped a rotation and we only went for 1 instead of 2. So we're still playing catch up, I would say, in that sense. So I'd have to evaluate it. I don't have a solid answer for you tonight.
All right, well, I would appreciate if you would at least look into it, just we are really struggling this year with the budget.
Do we have a motion from the finance committee?
You wanna take a look at it?
I'll make a motion, yeah, I'm just trying to think, not knowing what the cruisers. How about, I'm gonna make a motion to support this budget as stands, for 183,050, but I reserve the right to find out about this second cruiser before the public hearing, so. I'll just say
We'll vote again. after
exactly, that's what I
public
mean,
hearing.
so I'm
yeah,
just
there'll be
voting
another
at this
vote.
point to put it forward.
Yeah.
I might change my mind.
And I'll second that. Any further discussion? No? Donna?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's our turn.
When it's tied, who wins in a tie?
Well, it loses on
It loses in a tie, all right?
Do we have a motion? I'll let you guys go back to another motion, but let's see what we did.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to second what Ann just suggested.
Second that.
Discussion?
So we'll find out if it's feasible to make this a one.
Yeah.
Project, and then we'll just give the.
This is a preliminary vote anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, could I just comment quickly? The one car that is up for replacement is over 10 years old. We actually used that for some of the school transport at one point. And it had a big mechanical failure. We did fix it. It cost us some money, but that car I know is definitely, we've gotten its life out of. We've extended it as much as we can. I believe it's over 10 years old now.
I mean, you know, as much as obviously I value the lives of the police officers, just with the budget as it is, Shield seems to be the obvious, cut if we were gonna make anything cuts in the police department. Not that I don't think it's important, but I just think it's a tough year. And then I would like to look at, you know, one cruiser if we're able to skip a year, and obviously we never want to do that, but just with the budget as it is, that's something I'm thinking about. I don't know how others think, but the Shield seems to be the obvious.
There's a motion.
I'm just discussing, yeah, we're just discussing, so I'm just, you know, I'm throwing out what I'm thinking out loud, because
Yeah, and I
we have
totally,
to start making cuts
I
somewhere.
think one of the things that Chief mentioned the other night that we haven't really discussed is that, and it's in the literature for that a big part of the design of the shields is to prepare officers for an active shooter situation, which we don't really have any sort of protective equipment or disorienting equipment at the ready at the moment. Is that correct, Chief?
That's correct, not on a broad basis. We have a couple larger ballistic shields, but there would be more for not the initial response, not the first officers on scene. It would be more like the secondary approach and breach if we did have an active event.
Nice.
And I could just tell firsthand that the one swatting call, I went into the school unprepared. I had minimal equipment to handle an active situation if it was like that. And that's why this kind of got brought to the forefront for me, was my personal experience, and then realizing I don't want to be responsible for sending somebody in to a situation. I want to make sure that they're equipped and have the proper tools to handle that situation and save as many people as they can. So as part of my after action report, that's how this came to light. That's how I addressed it, and that's why I'm bringing it to you.
Chief, I just had a question. Are there other towns that have these shields?
Yeah, I
Nearest-
provided a letter today, Lennox, like I said, the Berkshire Special Response Team tested them for us to see, they had a week-long training. They had them there as a sample just to test it and see if it was something that was practical in the police use. After that, the Lennox Police Department did purchase, I believe, 5 or 6 of them. I sent you a picture today just to give an idea that it's not the big riot type shield that maybe you were thinking about, but it's more of a barrier that covers your main line, we call it, your head and your vital organs, in case you are engaged with a deadly situation. And it frees up both hands, so you have the ability to still use your hands with it. So Lennox has just purchased some, and I believe the Special Response Team is also going to be purchasing some.
So they only have 5, but they must have more vehicles than 5. They didn't get one for each vehicle.
I don't know the answer to that question, but they only run 1 or 2 officers on the road, so they probably have 4 or 5 cars, I would imagine.
Eric?
No, I'm don't have any more comments.
So can we have a motion and a second? And the motion is to fund the $183, $883.50. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
Yeah.
So 1 opposed, 4 in favor. Finance committee?
You wanna have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Can I make a motion? I'll make a motion for 1 cruiser and no and 1 cruiser and no shields. So I don't know what that would come up to, but second.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, any further discussion? Chief, maybe this is what you need to check on, but do you have the age of the other car you were thinking of replacing?
I do not it
Okay.
might be in the literature. Let me just check. Quotes.
While you're checking, Chief, I guess I just want to say, I do think that I would support an amend the motion to one cruiser. The shields to me are cheap for the safety, and I do think I find that someone can protect their face, can protect their arms. I guess there's bulletproof vests, but something that, I don't know, I think to me, it's not an expensive ask for safety. I'd rather have someone driving around in a car that maybe isn't quite as new, but with the potential to be safe in a difficult situation. So that would be my amendment, that we keep the shields, but get rid of the booster. I'd vote to vote with it.
I'd second that.
I don't have the information on
Okay,
the
okay,
replacement
yeah.
car, but I can get that for you easily.
Certainly, and one other point of clarification for me, I look, you sent that picture. And I looked at it on my phone and maybe I got a distorted view of the sun, is, when you say shield. I thought that it was really a shield for physical engagement, sort of close combat or close engagement.
It is
with
also.
person. It's not like a bullet shield of any type.
It is actually a
Is that
ballistic
correct?
shield also to cover.
But it's kind of small, isn't it?
It is small, but it covers your vital organs that and that's what it's for. So
Right.
what I learned from the special response teams, they were actually impressed by, for something so small, being able to cover such a large area of their, the areas that they'd be concerned about.
Okay.
We call them the red zones, the lethal areas.
Chief, do you use vests? Are they, I don't know, I want to say bulletproof, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of protective vests do you use?
Yes, we do, all the officers do wear bulletproof vests. They have certain ratings on them. They would stop most projectiles, but some higher velocity ammunition, that wouldn't stop them.
Thank you. So the other motion.
The motion is,
Yeah.
the amended motion is to fund the shields, the radios, and one cruiser.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion?
It's okay, it's fine.
So you gotta vote on the amendment first and then the main motion. Unless you just
Can't we just vote
withdraw.
on the amended motion?
What?
Can we just vote on the amended motion?
No,
No?
unless you just withdraw the main motion and start over again.
Can we do that? Because I'm not sure where we are.
I would have to. I'll withdraw the main motion.
Okay, so who's gonna make the motion now?
I will make the motion that we agree to fund the shields, radios, and one cruiser.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Madonna,
No.
Aye.
and it's for one, yeah, so I'm a no, because it's for one cruiser. I'm supporting the two cruisers.
Do we have, committee can't have a split vote, no?
You gotta make some recommendation for the public hearing, and it's finance committee recommendation would be the main one.
Well, the hard part is we don't have a fifth member here. This is all
Yeah.
fine.
We will next week, right?
Yeah. So why can we delay this vote until next
Chief
week?
won't be here, but we could.
I mean, we.
Well, if I have to, I'm gonna be on vacation on an island, so I can try to zoom in. If
You're on vacation.
Don't make him do this.
Yeah, you're on vacation.
I mean, I think
You
Richard
deserve-
can watch the recording of the meeting, and so I think he'd become prepared to vote, and we could do a vote.
Okay, we'll put that up.
So we'll have to delay it.
The select board vote stands, finance committee is yet to come.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Let's go to the fire department. You've been here all night. So the replacement.
I'm just here to watch.
Now you're here. The fire department is for, car number 1 replacement and engine number 2 reserve contribution. Engine number 2 would come out of free cash. Car number 1 would be borrowing. Yeah, go ahead.
What would be the harm of holding on to that 100,000 of free cash and then moving forward with your car? I understand savings accounts and saving money, but in this aspect, it seems to me that, just not putting that money into reserve this year might be beneficial for us.
Engine two is scheduled for replacement in 28,
Mhm.
so that would mean borrowing at least 100,000 more at that time.
Mhm.
If we're not-
Well, we're not contributing to any of our other reserve funds.
Right.
We haven't, this is a new reserve fund, we haven't started yet, right?
So the estimated total as of last year was at least 850,000.
850,000, yeah.
So by the time we get to the time it needs to be replaced, it could be more.
More, yeah.
So we're just trying to tamp down that debt at that time.
Yeah, I
by
would be
putting
very
this
careful
aside.
with that, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Well, then can I throw in another question? Is there any chance that car one could last one more year?
Come on up to the microphone, please.
Oh, yes.
There's two answers for that.
Uh-huh. Yes and no.
No,
No and no.
so the first part was the car was built back in 2016. When the department was responding to fewer number of calls, roughly between 500 and 600. And since then, the numbers of responses have doubled between, say, 1,100 and 1,200 a year. And the other part of that is that with the new cancer issues that we're having in the fire service, they're recommending, even with fire apparatus like Engine 2, is what they call a clean cab. So the gear that we wear inside fires, as soon as we take it off, it should never go inside the compartment where anybody is sitting. So like, car one right now is a Ford Explorer, so it's an SUV, and I have no choice but to put that gear back into the car, and the carcinogens from smoke are gonna be within the car. And what I'm looking at for a replacement is a pickup truck where I could store that in the back and it would never, enter the front. And that's transporting back to the fire station to clean. We do a very quick wash down on scene after we've been inside of any type of fire, but it doesn't release everything
No,
from
I
here.
understand. Okay.
Can I ask you something? You said that the number of calls doubled. Do you know what is the cause for that? Are they different calls?
I think part of that is our response to medical calls.
Medical calls.
EMTs.
Mhm.
So we're responding along with Southern Berkshire ambulance to medical calls.
Didn't Southern Berkshire come in and say that their calls had gone down?
Their calls, I can answer that, it's the chief, their calls have gone down because they don't have the staff to answer it.
And so
yeah,
your
they-
calls are going up.
So I'm not saying 911 necessarily, but also we're talking about transport between facilities,
Right,
et
right.
cetera. They're very having a tough time with staff.
I see, okay.
I have a question. Is there any chance that, I drive a pickup and I know the terrible gas mileage, so if you're gonna be doubling the gas miles, might be better off having a car and putting it in the trunk. But I'm not excited about driving a pickup truck 1,000 times. It would cost you an exorbitant amount of money. I don't think that's the best way to go.
I'm not sure exactly what we look at for options, for that.
The SUVs and stuff that you have now, I guess, or whatever you're driving now, I just don't think, but you know, trucks, they just don't get good mileage. If you're driving 1,000 times,
We have a quote for the
Wow.
Chevy Tahoe was higher than the pickup truck.
good now.
Other. Do I have a motion by the finance committee?
I'm gonna make a motion to fund the car one replacement, but not fund the engine two reserve payment.
I would second that motion.
Any discussion?
I know you want to,
I do.
I know, but we're not funding any of the other reserve funds.
Yeah, but this is like an essential thing.
But other essential things will come up.
If I could real quick, I think not putting that money in would be a pretty big mistake. The cost of replacing that engine at minimum with just the bare necessities on an engine in 2028, probably gonna be $700,000.
It's gonna be huge money,
So.
Yeah, I hear you, and that's important, and, yeah, it's, I hear you.
Last year I looked at one, replicating what Boston Fire Department has, and it's not a parade truck, it's strictly for putting out fires, there's nothing expensive or fancy on it. And that was minimum of 620 for that, and that was last year.
Chief, what's the lifespan of a engine roughly?
We generally have to follow the National Fire Protection Association's recommendations, and that's 25 years. They're supposed to be put into a reserve status after 25. I believe we can keep them in that status for either 3 or 5 before we have to get rid of them.
Yeah, I hear loud and clear. I guess I'm just looking at it the other way, in that when we get to 28 and we need the engine, we're not gonna say, oh, this is easy because we have this little reserve account of a couple $100,000.
Right.
It's just, it's gonna be painful either way.
It will. I
Yeah.
think it'll be easier though.
That's fair.
This is the first year of our reserve account, right? Is that what?
Yeah, there's nothing in it
Have
right now
we
that I
done
can
this, is this the
We
third year of
have
us
a
doing?
capital stabilization account.
No, but I mean, for this particular line item here, so this is the first time we've done it.
Yes, this is the first time we've ever had a dedicated reserve fund.
Well, we have a capital stabilization.
No, I know, but I mean a specific purchase item.
Right, and it's interesting because if we're concerned about debt,
Yeah.
that we would want to do this to balance it out a little bit, so in 3 years, it'd be 500 instead of 800. But I can see the other side of that is, because we haven't done that before, and we've already got all this debt, we want to not spend 100,000, but it's gonna come back to bite us in 3 years.
Yeah.
And I understand that as well, but I'm thinking, when we were just talking about the operating budget and use of free cash, can we use this $100,000 somewhere else that is affecting the debt possibilities immediately?
The answer is yes, because we could apply it to
And
the
I
operating
guess,
budget.
I understand we gotta worry about the debt in 27, 28, 29, 30, but we're looking for immediate support to take the burden off this budget, to take the burden off the next one, you know, and I think these are hard decisions that we're gonna be making for the next 30 years that Ben's on the select board for, you know, so. You know.
So there's a motion. and a
That's to
second.
Ben.
There's a motion and a second for the finance committee.
All right, okay, I'm gonna make I'm gonna withdraw my first motion. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the fire department, capital request as is.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, vote. Madonna,
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
So that passes 4-0. Do I have a motion from the
You were gonna bail out.
select board?
I make the same motion.
We are.
No. Same motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Can you just second it? We don't have to have a discussion, it's on.
That's right.
Yeah, discussion.
I guess I think that we can use that money elsewhere, so I understand the need. But I think that can help sort out our budget issues, immediately, I guess is what I'm saying. So I would like that money to be used elsewhere for right now.
All in favor? Aye.
You want me to talk about the money being used elsewhere? or
No,
talking about-
no, we're talking about the
The
motion.
major.
The full budget,
Just
that is.
approving
Right,
the
yeah.
167.
So all in favor is 2, opposed?
No.
I'll say no.
Okay, so that fails. Do I have another motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the fire budget for car replacement number 1.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. So it passes 4-1, car only.
So we have two different directions here, so
We take the finance committee.
we just leave it as is, or you can vote at the public hearing.
No, you take the finance committee is what you take, I think.
Well, doesn't it go in front of the town with the split vote?
Well, what'll happen with the town is if we keep this same vote, it'll say
Yeah.
finance
exactly.
committee recommended,
Right.
select board not recommended.
We are gonna have a long town meeting.
No doubt.
Yes. Okay, so we're done with fire. Let's try to do a couple more. I'm not gonna do DBW.
Thank
Let's do, first of all, the wastewater is all retained earnings. And maybe I'll get lucky and this is not a difficult one. So finance committee,
There's a
Discuss.
quarter. Oh, no. I see.
On the wastewater?
yeah, the only borrowing is the
Oh, I
pump
see that,
station
yeah.
upgrades and that's only for the users.
So it's.
Yeah, and I'll just to review, we have, if I remember correctly, 6.4 million of retained earnings in our wastewater enterprise. Entity. No, is that,
Their interest rates are too high.
am I remembering that correctly?
That sounds about right.
6.4.
Now, and if you don't know, and if you need to check on this, I totally get it, but is that roughly, are we essentially saying we have 6.4 million of cash reserves in the wastewater?
That's free cash for wastewater, yes.
Sometimes retained earnings is a little bit, okay, all right, so I'll make a motion to approve the wastewater pump station upgrade for 1.5 million, coming out of, no, it's borrowing. It wastewater borrowing. Let me start over again. So approve as is, that would be a great idea, yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the wastewater capital requests as stated on the page.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madonna?
Aye.
Elena?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, I as well.
Okay, select board.
I'll make the same motion.
Got a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Let's go with transit.
So good news on transit, we're taking possession of one of those vehicles very soon, so you can take $23,000 off of that 45.
So that would be
Saving money on.
22,000.
Getting it for free.
Okay.
Taxes are plummeting
Yes.
downward.
I'm sorry, did you say take off 23 or it's just 22?
Take off 23.
Okay.
So 22.
Why don't we take out 22,500 and split it?
And hopefully, by the time you have a public hearing, we'll know whether or not you can take out that 22 as well. Okay. Because we have a grant in play at the moment.
Will you know by next Tuesday?
No.
Okay. Motion from the finance committee.
So I'll make a motion that we allocate $22,000 for the transit vehicle capital requests.
Second.
Any further discussion? Being none, Madonna,
Aye.
Elena?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
I second the motion.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye. TV's turning off more.
Oh, no.
It's unanimous. Let's do one more. Joe, you've been here.
Well, let's make, okay.
We have a game.
Parks. So can you just remind us what that was for? And some of that's CPA and some of it's tax levy.
Yeah, what is, how much is which?
Right, exactly.
$95,000 of that is CPA money,
Oh, okay.
so there's minimal monies in there for, Wi-Fi and cameras at advanced. $10,000, the remaining $10,000 is to help facilitate the, improving Stanley Park, and that's the $10,000 donation.
So of that total, 95 was CPA, 58,000 was from tax.
From the tax levy or borrow? I make a motion to approve the parks improvement equipment capital request of a $58,000 expenditure funded by the tax levy.
I guess I'll second it for discussion. I just want to, again, if we're really sort of digging down deeply, do we need to do the Wi-Fi and the videos this year? And is it tied, does the CPA grant assume that the town's
It
contributing?
could be a partially.
They're separate
They're
projects.
separate.
You can talk about cameras and Wi-Fi separately of the CPA.
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
different. CPA is about Grove Street Park, which is different.
So is a location dedicated?
The CPA,
Yeah,
it's for Grove Street.
yeah, so that's for the, so could we, I'm with you on it, could we delay the camera and the Wi-Fi? I mean, is it, what is really critical about it, anything, or kind of a nice to have?
Graffiti,
but what's
Right.
the Wi-Fi for?
to run the cameras.
Oh,
It communicates cameras to the
I
cloud,
see.
so you don't see the cameras, so.
So 3 days a week in the summer, we're up at Lake Mansfield, taking the tables and benches out of the lake.
Oh, so you're talking about that kind of stuff, I see, okay. Right.
I mean, to me, again, I was the one who brought this up, but I also think it's a bit of a safety issue too, and it feels like
Yeah.
I want to
guess,
fund
yeah.
safety, so I think I'm going to
Yeah.
retract my retraction.
Just to add, would this also ideally allow you to like have a closing door on the garbage can at the Tonic Commons Park as well, since I believe that's always been an issue?
And Uzi,
Yeah,
so what happened?
the trash bin, there's just a door that like covers up the actual like on the playground. Then I believe every time your crew has fixed it, the next day it's been ripped off its hinges again, and so.
Like some kids or something?
Yeah, and so you just
Could be
stop.
raccoon.
Could be raccoons, we have a lot of raccoons. I do think-
We'll mitigate some of that.
I think it does, this does end up paying dividends and just
Yeah,
reducing
no, I
the amount
agree,
of.
and I think it's a safety issue.
Yeah,
And speaking with the police chief, these are kind of the two areas that we have trouble.
So, we have the motion on the table that's been seconded for the.
Oh, that is, yeah,
Yeah, so 58,000. Any further discussion?
Well, I think we have to approve the whole 153 or no?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to approve the CPA board.
I don't know if you do or not, it's on there.
Okay,
You don't, that's not your jurisdiction, but it'd be
It's
great to
separate,
have
right.
some
Yeah.
thoughts in that regard.
all right. Well, I'm gonna make a motion, I'm gonna retract my earlier motion and make a motion to approve the parks and improvement capital request as indicated on the page.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Donna,
Aye.
Elena?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
I second the motion of finance committee.
Same motion,
Second that.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay. We're done for now.
I didn't know. Talking about the roads again?
Roads?
Yes.
That's tomorrow, I mean,
Okay,
that's Tuesday.
Okay, we're not doing the
Yeah.
DPW
Yeah.
capital tonight. So the question is, do we want to start at 5 or 6 on Tuesday?
Start at 5.
I can start at 5.
Yeah. I agree. So everyone can make it at 5?
I will be zooming, but I'll make it.
Okay, so you had a blank look on your face, so I just
No,
wanted
it's
to.
just, yeah, I think there's a blank look, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be starting at 5, is staff okay with that? Okay, media, citizen speak time. Can we just, let's see.
I've come here for 35 years, Walter, and I really appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy.
Maybe someone there.
You should come here. We
Oh,
should chat with the finance committee.
On the shield, you were talking about, I would admit, I would ask the chief of police about the shield, they were bullet, excuse me, a bulletproof vest, which will most likely stop at 357, something like that. I believe the shield they have will stop a rifle bullet, that's why they asked for it.
Oh,
Thank you.
The bulletproof vest won't stop the common small caliber things, like 17 to 22 magnum that are very popular.
James, go right ahead. Name and address, please.
James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. I just want to say thank you very much and happy Valentine's, everyone. Have a good night.
You're happy
We spread it with our
Valentine's Day, yeah.
favorite people. Anyone else? Any media time? By unanimous consent, we are adjourned.